Welcome, everybody, into a brand new episode of the Brickyard Podcast. We are coming to you live on a Tuesday night on Veterans Day, and we will be covering what may be one of the worst weeks of the NFL season, coming off what was one of the best weeks in the NFL season. So we can see how the pendulum swings on these things, but we also have to preview every single game for week 11, give you our best and worst top five. But we did have some breaking news. Two major firings came out today on a holiday. On Veterans Day, we have two people that will be holding, as you say it, a cardboard box, respectively, outside of the mall. First, since this is an NFL First podcast, NFL First, Brian Daboll. Gone.
Right.
I mean, Nerd Boy outlasted him, Mike McDaniel.
Pillsbury Daboll is gone from New York. He started off his career with the Giants 7-2, and then he ends 13-38. 4 fourth quarter collapses this year alone. It just wasn't going to work. They have their future quarterback in Jackson Dart, but just wasn't working out in New York. So he is gone, to no surprise. I'm glad to see it. It's unfortunate for Brian Daboll. Maybe another team gives him a call, but this was a firing that was it was earned. He had earned this firing.
Yeah, and it was bound to happen. You know, you give him another chance with Daniel Jones, but this kind of already seems like a lost season. And after struggling the past few years, after getting a playoff win your first season, and seemingly like this team progressively got worse. You've had some injuries to Cam Scatterbo. Now you have an injury to Jackson Dart. He went in a concussion protocol. Also, Malik Neighbors getting injured. So now you kind of have an opportunity to fire Brian Daboll, let this team kind of just go along with Russell Wilson. Maybe you get a high draft pick next year, and then you get a fresh pick in year 2 for your head coach, and you're kind of eyeing what the Patriots did when they got Mike Vrabel now, and seeing if you can bring in, is Kevin Stefanski going to be available next year to work with Jackson Dart? Are you going to have any other, talented head coaches that may be available as well? Maybe someone else who's an offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because it seems like everyone from there gets hired now.
Yeah, I think at this point, offensive-minded head coach, I think Kevin Stefanski would be a great fit for New York. He's proven to be a good coach in Cleveland, doesn't have his quarterback there. So I think that's a team that would make a lot of sense for him. Maybe it's a college coach potentially that gets the call, but Giants, they have the foundation to be a good team. It just clearly wasn't the right coach. So maybe Brian Daboll gets another chance, but this firing, you can't blow 4 fourth quarter comebacks, especially – that Broncos game always comes to mind. A 15-point lead with 5 minutes left, blowing that was disgraceful. You had a 19-point lead that you blew in the fourth quarter in another game. It was just bound to happen. You can't do that in the NFL, especially when your margin of error for the Giants was practically zero. You could be looking at a 500 team right now, but instead you're looking for the number 1 pick right now.
Yeah, but how much do you think this was the Giants wanting to part ways from Brian Daboll, or a mutual parting of the ways, where we've kind of seen Brian Daboll progressively go more and more insane? And then he has to deal with Daniel Jones, has to deal with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And then he has Russell Wilson, benches him for Jackson Dart, and him and Cam Scatterbo are looking like they could actually maybe lead this team to the playoffs, give the Eagles a scare, make a wild card spot. But then you see 3 of your most important players on offense get injured. So do you think part of this is Brian Daboll just saying, I've had enough of this?
I think it's got to be a part of it. Not only that, you have 3 of your biggest weapons on offense go down with injury. And so I think it's also just been an unlucky season for the Giants, but this was their moment. They had their quarterback, which they haven't had in the Daboll era so far, and you've mustered up a 2-8 record with him. So he's just clearly not the guy. So I think part of it has to do with him being done with New York, and the other part of it is just they're going to end up firing him anyways. Might as well cut it loose while the season is practically over already. See what this offensive coordinator can do.
Yeah, I think also another key factor could be just the Giants ownership watching Daniel Jones and what Shane Steichen has been able to do with him this season, because you had Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones at one point and you were able to get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. But just seeing how different Daniel Jones' mentality is, his demeanor, kind of his verbiage, I think that also plays a role in it when you're looking at from a Giants management perspective. Like, what? Hold a minute. If Shane Steichen can give this guy confidence to go out there and run an offense, they can be a competitive team, and you can kind of work around his flaws. Why couldn't you figure that out? You're the head coach. That's your job.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the Daniel Jones in New York, the most turnover prone guy in the NFL this year, limiting mistakes for the most part. So they've been able to unlock what we saw in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones. So the Giants, I think if they can get the right head coach, we can see Jackson Dart take that next step to being truly an NFL superstar. But right now with Dayball, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, flipping to the other league, you all campaigned for it. We saw riots in the street of Dallas. Deep Ellum was set on fire, and we saw protests outside American Airlines Arena with people shouting, "Fire Nico." Chants would break out during Dallas Mavericks game to fire Nico Collins anytime fans saw him in the arena. There was a lot of negativity building up around Nico Harrison in the Dallas Mavericks organization. Ownership saw that, especially seeing what the team is right now, with essentially him being thrown under the bus. Shams going on ESPN and telling Stephen A. Smith that he was the main person pushing the idea to trade Luka Doncic, pair Kyrie Irving with Anthony Davis. And now Dallas Mavericks fans end up winning in the end, and the chants of fire Nico were heard around the world, and he is finally gone for maybe, doing one of the worst trades in NBA history.
This has got to go down as one of the worst GM jobs of all time because first you have that Luka Doncic trade, which has aged like sour milk. He's been exceptional for the Lakers. He was exceptional for Dallas, of course, but that trade, they clearly won that trade. And then not only that, you chose not to sign Jalen Brunson. He goes to New York and brings them to a conference finals, brings them one game to an NBA finals. So you get rid of Jalen Brunson. He became a superstar in New York. And then you trade away the star of your franchise, a guy that you could have built around for the next 15 years because he was pudgy, because he was fat. Really? He looks pretty good in New York and LA. It looks like he's on that Ozempic or something, but now we see the Mavericks. They're 3-8. They're out of the playoffs right now, but Nico Harrison might go down as one of the worst GMs in the history of the NBA for the way he completely debilitated a Mavericks team that made the finals just a few years ago. And now we're looking at a team that is in rebuild. They got the number 1 overall pick this past draft with Cooper Flagg. Maybe they can build around it with the right GM, but what a complete unraveling of a team that was once the face of the Western Conference.
Yeah, and they were close to being the face of the Western Conference, and he was the one pushing the idea that you can't win a championship with Luka Doncic, and they had to throw someone under the bus. But like, I mean, it seemed like the NBA was really the one pushing for this trade, especially because you see Luka Doncic get traded for the Lakers, and then miraculously the Mavericks fall with the number 1 overall pick and are able to take Cooper Flagg. Like, that already seems suspicious, but the trade was really going to revolve around how effective was Anthony Davis going to be for this team. And well, he came into camp overweight and he's already injured this season. He was already a player that played a lot older than he was when he was in LA. So this was never really a fair trade. Luka's still going to have another solid 12 years at least. And he was someone who got you to an NBA finals with Kyrie Irving already. And now Luka Doncic is going to be the problem here. So like, you traded away a generational talent, someone who could go down as a top maybe 25 player of all time. And now you're taking a gamble with Cooper Flagg. And if Cooper Flagg doesn't pan out, then it's going to be a long stretch for the Dallas Mavericks. Even though Cooper Flagg does look good so far, he struggled a little bit, but I think he has potential.
Oh, I think Cooper Flagg, it won't be the problem for Dallas, but The problem is that you traded away a guy who's 25 years old for a guy who not only is 32, but an old 32. This is a guy that has never played 82 games in a season. The one season he did, the closest he got to that was 75 games with the Pelicans and one time with the Lakers. But otherwise, this guy is always injured. He's had a bunch of different injuries. And now you're getting a guy whose body is banged up. Never mind the fact that he's a bigger center as well, the centers always age a lot more rapidly than, say, guards do. So I feel like we're going to see Anthony Davis start to fizzle out of his prime. And we're already starting to see it this year. He's a lot less defensively on lock than he's been in the years past. So I just think, I don't know why you would trade your future for a guy who is a short-term, essentially rental before he ends up becoming out of his prime.
Yeah, and then he also fumbled Jalen Brunson going to the Knicks, and you could have got him on a team-friendly deal, and then you wouldn't have had to trade for Kyrie Irving. Now Jalen Brunson's showing he would have been like another really good, affordable option. He's been one of the clutchest players in the NBA, in the New York Knicks in the playoffs the past few years.
Yeah, and he's been a playoff superhero at this point, a guy that's elevated his game in the playoffs. He played amazing for them this past year when they made it to the conference finals, and he's always showed up in the playoffs with the Knicks so far. So massive choke job for Nico Harrison. Eventually, probably in the offseason, we'll do a worst GMs of all time list, and Nico Harrison's probably going to find his way on that list somewhere.
Yeah, that and then Danny Ainge holding on to all those draft picks. Top GMs that like holding on to draft picks, Danny Ainge.
He is the final boss of that type of GM.
But Nico Harrison, really bad GM, which leads us into heading out of week 10, going into week 11. Who are the top 5 worst teams, most horrendous teams coming out of week 10 of the NFL this year?
Yes, so the worst of the worst, and this is not going to be the list that you expect to see, because the teams that have graduated from this list, the Saints, a team that everyone thinks will be the number 1 overall pick, they get a win. They are not on this list. The Dolphins, who have been bullied and harassed, rightfully so, are not on this list because they beat the Bills. And the Jets, who have won back-to-back games, they are not on this list. But we have an entire division at number 5. Give me the AFC North, because the Steelers showed on Sunday night that they are fraudulent, old. Their defense is not what they were. They're old. The Bengals can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, they've given up the most points in the NFL. Completely horrendous. I don't even need to talk about the Browns. You already know what I'm going to say about the Browns and the disaster that they've been our entire lifetime. And then you have the Ravens. And yes, they've won 3 straight games, but their defense this year also has been atrocious. Lamar Jackson's been hurt. The AFC North is still wide open. The best team at 5-4, and the only division in football with every team having a negative point differential. So this AFC North, they are the worst top 5. The entire division is at the worst top 5 at number 5. So AFC North at number 5. At number 4, this goes out to everybody who dedicated their Thursday night to a Thursday night game and had to watch the Broncos, who might be the worst 8-2 team of all time. In fact, they might actually be the worst 8-2 team of all time. And then the Raiders, who I've already bullied multiple times this year. Pete Carroll is 785 years old. Brock Bowers has been banged up, has not been himself. And then Geno Smith. Between Geno Smith and Israel, the world is falling apart. So the Raiders, needless to say, these two forces collide, and you make for maybe the worst Thursday night football game, at least of this year, but maybe of the last 5 years. So at number 4, we just have the Thursday night football matchup, which was just absolutely excruciating. But at number 3, we have a team, this was peaking around the top 5 at one point. They looked like they were wagons. They looked like they were bound to make it out of the NFC. But this team deserves to make it here after 2 consecutive losses and an absolutely abysmal Monday night performance. Give me the Packers. You traded for Micah Parsons, and yet the last 2 games, he has as many quarterback hits and pressures as you and I do. He has been a complete shell of himself the last 2 games. You have a tie in there with the Cowboys. That was disgusting. This Packers team, which I thought at one point was going to be the Super Bowl favorites, And now they just look like they're the Steelers at this point. And that's not a good company to be in 2025. So Packers, they are number 3. At number 2, we got to mention the Giants. Yet another blown lead. The fourth quarter meltdown of the season. It cost Pillsbury Dayball his job. He is gone. He is unemployed. 7-2 to start his Giants tenure. He is now 13-38. Maybe the local bakery is hiring. Maybe he will find his job somewhere else. But at number 2, the Giants, the worst team. But number 1, sticking to New York teams, give me the Bills. The Bills, who we've given so much shit to over the last 5 years, and rightfully so. This team, at one point, looked like the face of the AFC. The Chiefs looked like it was a down year for them. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson was hurt. The Chargers completely eviscerated their injuries. The Texans started off slow. And who comes out of the shadows after 4 mediocre seasons? 4-13, 4-13, Cam Newton, Mac Jones. Suddenly, the Bills are back to their old ways. You had 5 years and you managed 2 conference championship games. And what did that get you? 0-5 against Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. 0-4 against the Chiefs specifically. And now the Patriots have a full game lead against you with another game to face you with a 7-game winning streak. Suddenly, yet again, the Bills are playing second fiddle in that division. And how many rings did they get? 0. So the Bills, for choking, you had a 5-year window between Brady and Drake May, and you completely choked it away. Between that Bengals snow game that was a complete disaster, between all of the Chiefs games, the 13-second game, the missed Tyler Bass field goal. Number 1, the most fraudulent good team in the NFL goes the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, the worst top 5.
Yeah, no, they definitely deserve it too. The Bills fans, like, what did you do when the Patriots were rebuilding? Like, we beat Lamar Jackson in the playoffs twice. That was really cool. But we lost to
almost
Joe
beat the
Burrow and
Chiefs.
Patrick Mahomes every time. We almost beat the Chiefs twice. Like, that's what you did in 5 years? No, they definitely deserve to be the number 1 worst team.
So you know how in the 90s, how they made the Super Bowl 4 consecutive years? This time around, they just faced the Chiefs 4 years in a row, and they lost every single time against Patrick Mahomes, a guy who at some points people say Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes, yet you are 0-4 in the playoffs. And if you face them this year, you probably lose again. So the Bills, you're fraudulent. You had Stephon Diggs. You let him walk. Now you have Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, an offense that I can't really get behind. Frankly, a one-dimensional offense at this point. You have had now 7 years to build around Josh Allen, and what has it gotten you? Your defense is awful. Your weapons are awful. Yes, you got James Cook. Congratulations. Delvin Cook's cousin. You did a great job drafting him. But otherwise, for a team that had so long to build themselves as a superior, dominant team to win a Super Bowl, you have choked it away. And now you're going to be a wild card team for the next decade because the Patriots have arrived.
Yeah, and the Bills were also like, oh, yeah, I love that we don't have a superstar receiver and there's no pressure to throw anyone the ball or like no drama on the sidelines. The constant digs at Stephon Diggs last season, like, oh, yeah, we're just spreading the ball around. Josh Allen gets the ball to everyone. I'm like, well, what happens when, say, Khalil Shakir goes down? When Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid goes down. We saw when Dalton Kincaid goes down, oh, wait a minute, this offense really can't do much and they can't afford to lose too many weapons. And I get Josh Allen was running for his life, but this was a team that everybody thought was just going to walk away with it at the beginning of the season. This is a team that people have been begging and they've just been picking them over and over again to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't understand how you bring back someone who broke a record for losing to a team consecutive times in the playoffs, and you're like, you know what? We should bring him back as our head coach and expect a different result. Like, are you insane? Because that is actually the definition of insanity. Sean McDermott broke a record for losing to a team in the playoffs. You're like, no, I think he should come back and be our head coach. That's a smart idea. Real cool, real fun.
And look at what it's cost you at this point. Your team is 6-3. At this point, you might not even be the number 1 seed. At this point, you might not even be the number 1 wild card team. You might potentially be the 6th seed. You might have to face the Patriots, who just beat you a couple of weeks ago and might beat you again when you face them again later this year. Like, you're not even the number one wild card team anymore. The Chargers are ahead of you. And we're going to cover the playoff picture later, but the Bills, for a team that was the favorite in every single game this year, is now 6-3, and there are plenty of losses remaining on their schedule. This team could probably finish 10-7, 11-6, and it would not surprise me. Buffalo, worst top 5 team of the Brickyard this week, week 10. You deserve it. You lost to the I didn't even get into the fact that you lost to the Dolphins. I didn't even have time to. I was too busy highlighting all of your past failures the last 5 years. You lost to the Dolphins, a team where Mike McDaniel is literally crashing out on the sidelines, calling a timeout in the first play of the game. And you couldn't beat that team, a team that got blown out week after week. Give me a break. I didn't even go over that part, but that's another key fact. You lost to the Dolphins. Like, they're not going to win another game this year. You literally gave them their third and only win remaining. So congratulations, Buffalo. Worst top 5.
Yeah. No, definitely worst top 5. And we'll get to them more when we talk to the game, but we actually do have to be positive on this show. And we're going to go over now the top 5 teams in the NFL according to the Brickyard. The Broncos have been on this list in the past and will not be making an appearance. I have not put the Buffalo Bills on the top 5 teams this year, and there's a very good reason for it. You all saw why on Sunday, but we do have at number 5, this team was just given a timeout from this list because last week they lost to Minnesota versus JJ McCarthy, but now Dan Campbell took over the play calling for Detroit, and what happened? You dropped 44 points and Jahmyr Gibbs had 172 all-purpose yards. You unlocked Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown start to pick it up again, and you saw the offense kind of get a little bit more juice with Dan Campbell calling the play, so that was nice to see on the sideline. Also, your defense is one of the most efficient run defenses in the league this year, so if you do fall behind, that gives you a great chance to come back, especially with how explosive this offense is. So at number 5, we have the Detroit Lions. At number 4, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Did you know there is one man and one man alone that has returned 2 fumble recoveries for 20-plus yards for a touchdown? DeMarcus Lawrence. He's the only man. That happened on Sunday versus the Arizona Cardinals. Sam Darnold really didn't have to do too much, but this Seattle Seahawks team is showing that they can dominate all 3 phases of the game now. Special teams, defense now gets you 2 touchdowns, and when your defense can be explosive, that definitely helps take the pressure off someone like Sam Darnold, especially when you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who may very well be the best wide receiver and the FedEx Air Player of the Year this season. He may get that award. It's a very coveted award in the NFL. And now you add Rashid Shaheed to that mix. Your running backs are really starting to cook here. So at number 4, we have the Seattle Seahawks. At number 3, we have the New England Patriots. Drake May is now number 1, according to Vegas, in the MVP conversation. And you come off with a huge win in Tampa Bay. And now Drake May is the only player in NFL history to have 2,500 passing yards, 70+% completion percentage, 250+ rushing yards, 5 or fewer interceptions through 10 games of an NFL season. Drake May is the only person in history to do that. And then you just look at Mike Vrabel. Anytime this guy talks, I'm like, oh yeah, this team gains more aura. You see that picture of him resurfacing on the poker table, and then you go for it on 4th down, and it's a pass play in the corner to Stephon Diggs, and it's a perfect throw by Drake May. Drake May gets hit on a play, and he lands a perfect crossing route to his player, number 81, who had a breakout game in his first game for the Patriots. He ends up taking it for a score, and now the Patriots are really starting to cook on another level. I've kept them tentatively at number 4, but at this point, I do put them as probably my favorite in the AFC right now, outside the Kansas City Chiefs. So at number 3, have the Pats. At number 2, I have the Eagles. It's like Monday Night Football. I get it. You're going to Green Bay. It was 31 degrees out, and it seemed like both teams forgot what it was like to play in the cold. But what I do like about this team is that Jalen Hurts was pretty efficient in this game. He did have a bad fumble early on, but overall, your defense was able to get it done. Jalen Carter looked like an absolute monster in this game, and I know this offense will have another gear to go to in the playoffs, so not too much to say, but they did win the Super Bowl last year, and you got a gritty win on Monday Night Football in sub-freezing temperatures, so got to give respect to the champs. At number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. At number 1, we have the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford is the only player in NFL history through 6 weeks to throw 20 touchdowns and no interceptions. I repeat, Matthew Stafford is the only player now in 3 straight weeks to throw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, but the past 6 weeks, he's gone for 20 touchdowns and no interceptions, so he's making history right now. The Rams look absolutely explosive on offense. Their defense is ranked as one of the top defenses in the NFL. So at number 1, I have the Rams because their offense looked scary on Sunday, especially versus the 49ers. Niners have been a good team. They've been a well-coached team. And the fact that they just went out there versus a division rival and dominated like that was impressive.
I love the Rams at number 1. You have Puka Nacua, who prior to his injury was having a Hall of Fame level season offensive player of the year potential candidate. You have Devontae Adams. You have Kyron Williams, who's played great. And then Matt Stafford playing arguably his best football of his career so far. So I love the Rams. Plus, their defense has been in the top 10 in the NFL. So love the Rams at number 1. We were very high on them entering the season, and it looks like that's coming into fruition. So love the Rams at 1. Patriots, they're playing great football. Lions, everyone we shouted out. But top 5 teams according to the Brickyard. Absolutely cinema.
Yeah, sensational. What was not sensational Thursday night? What the fuck was that? I mean, you look forward all week for football to start. You have the Raiders and the Broncos, and you picked the spread to be covered. Congratulations. You picked a great spread. They covered it 8 points, but that's because the Broncos offense was absolutely horrendous. They couldn't get anything going, couldn't get the run game going. And then the Raiders just couldn't get it done. And this is also the second week in a row that Sean Payton has hurt a starting quarterback for the opposing team. What the hell is that about? So now back-to-back week for the Broncos, you've gotten a 1-possession win, and you've had to injure the opposing starting quarterback to do it.
Yeah, this game was the Chernobyl of all Chernobyl games. Absolute dumpster fire of a game. The Raiders score on the opening drive, and then from there, they get shut out through the next 3 quarters. And the Broncos, they didn't even need to have a 4th quarter to win this game. Ultimately, the reason why I picked this spread was not because I thought that this was going to be an amazing game, but I just knew when I saw an 8.5-point spread, I'm like, are the Broncos even going to score enough points to cover this spread? And I was right. Ultimately, 10-7 was all it took. And Bo Nix, one of the most fascinating quarterbacks to watch each week, because it feels like half of the game, he's one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. And then he has a couple of plays that happen where I'm like, oh, maybe Bo Nix is a starting quarterback. Maybe he is that guy. But this team now is 8-2, and they look like they could potentially have the number 1 seed. And they might be the worst 8-2 team of all time. Honest to God, I said it in our worst top 5, but I look at all their wins, right? They beat the Titans twice. Okay, impressive. They beat the Titans. They lost to the Colts on a wonky field goal. I'll give them that. They lost to the Chargers. But then we see a hideous game against the Jets, 13-11, a comeback win against the Giants that the Giants probably should have won, a scrappy win against the Texans, and then the Raiders. They just, if it wasn't for their defense, this team would be in complete shambles at this point. So I think this team is very fraudulent. I think on this upcoming week when they face the Chiefs, this is when reality starts to set in for them.
Yeah, honestly, I think they're like still the same team from last year. Maybe the defense is a little bit better. You have a little bit better of a run game, but when you're gonna play all of these games this close, the only team you've blown out thus far, I believe, is the Dallas Cowboys. So I think if you get into a situation where you're playing a team like the Ravens, if their defense can get healthy, the Patriots or the Chiefs, or even the Chargers, maybe, or the Texans in the playoffs if CJ Stroud is healthy, it's going to look a lot like how that Buffalo Bills game went down, where it's you might get absolutely blown out, and then the offense is just going to sputter in the playoffs. Because sure, if you sputter in the regular season, that's fine, but typically these sputtering teams with middling quarterbacks that have some good moments but seem kind of average, where he's getting down to about 60% completion percentage, that's not good. Like, this is a recipe for them to be a disaster if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, and right now, Bo Nix has the 18th highest QB rating. He's 15th in passing yards. He's got the touchdowns and everything, but he's still throwing picks. He had 2 picks in this game. But this game, was this the worst Thursday night game of the year so far? I know we haven't had the greatest pickings of Thursday night games, but I mean, this game was a complete 10-7. I mean, good Lord. We haven't really had a good Thursday night game probably since the Flacco and Aaron Rodgers game a few weeks back, but this game was awful in every way. To break it down, on my birthday of all things, like this is the game they give me on my birthday. NFL slapped me in the face in this game, to be honest.
Yeah, and it really kind of did set the tone for the week. And we thought, maybe we would get saved in Germany with the Colts and the Falcons. And we did for the most part, because the Atlanta Falcons came out. They gave the Colts pretty much everything they had. Their season was on the line. And then you take a look at the Indianapolis Colts, and now Jonathan Taylor goes absolutely nuclear in this game. 244 yards and 3 touchdowns, setting records currently.
Yeah, this game, I watched a little bit of it. I think the more I watch this Falcons team, the more I start to understand your Dolphins comp earlier this season. Michael Penix completed what 30% of his passes. He was 12 of 28, complete wreck. And then Jonathan Taylor rushing for all of what the Falcons had on offense, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then we look at the rushing yards total. He is 200 rushing yards above the second place guy, which is James Cook. He already has 1,100 yards through 10 games. He's on track to potentially have a 2,000-yard season. If we're going to talk about an MVP candidate, we've talked about Drake May, and there's a number of other guys to shout out, Matt Stafford. But this might be, honestly, this is a year where I think that ultimately we give this to a running back and we give it to Jonathan Taylor. I think he's due. If it wasn't for Jonathan Taylor in this game, I think that the Falcons win this game. Daniel Jones started to revert back to the old Daniel Jones way, but I will say for this Berlin game, this is probably the best game we had this week as far as going to overtime, came down to the wire. But overall, what was your thoughts as far as this game? I felt the Colts kind of regressed a little bit despite the win.
Yeah, I think the Colts and the Falcons, I feel like the Colts are a team that has benefited from playing in an easier division. They've had a lot of easier games, but you can only play the teams in front of you. So I think there's a team that's a little bit overachieving right now as far as the record, and the Falcons are a team that is generally underachieving. I think their record should be a little bit better for what they are as a team overall right now. But really, the story is still Jonathan Taylor. And at this point, it's been 10 games in the NFL season, and players with 1,100 rush yards and 15 plus touchdowns in the first 10 games rushing is Jonathan Taylor, 2025. Sean Alexander in 2005. What did he do? Win the MVP. Terrell Davis in 1998. What did he do? Win the MVP. Emmett Smith in 1995. Eric Dickerson in 1983, and Jim Brown in 1958 also won the MVP. So 3 out of 5 running backs to do this in the past have won the MVP right now. And then he's also one of 6 players all time to have multiple 200 yards rushing games with 3 touchdowns. So really it comes down to Jonathan Taylor just being this hot. And for the Indianapolis Colts, I think their defense has gotten better this year, but you're only going to go as far as Jonathan Taylor is going to take you, because I do think we saw some signs that if Daniel Jones has to it, he's not going to get it done. Like, if a team like the New England Patriots is able to shut down Jonathan Taylor, you're not getting past them. If the Chiefs can stop the run, you're not getting past them either. But other than that, I think they could beat most other teams in the AFC. I do think the Texans are going to give them a lot of trouble, though, with how their defense has looked over the past 2 weeks. It still looks like they have the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Colts, we've given them a lot of grief this year, but they have beaten everybody in front of them. It does get a little bit tougher because they have the Chiefs and Texans these next 2 weeks, and they are on bye this upcoming week. But I think these are going to be the biggest games for them. If they can play a good game against the Chiefs, even if they don't necessarily win it, this will be a telltale sign if they're legitimate. And then when they face the Texans the following week, if they can get 2 wins out of that, then all right, I'll give the Colts their flowers. But I need to see them against a team that can contain Jonathan Taylor, which seems to be an impossible mission this year. But overall, this was a great internet. This might be the best international game we've had this year to this point.
Oh, definitely.
But otherwise, yeah, Drake London continuing. He's played great this year. Shout out Drake London. But yeah, Colts get the win. And then we go
Free
to the
Jake
one
London. Free
free.
Drake
Yeah, exactly.
London. Free Drake London.
I'm down for that arc. And then we go to the 1 o'clock slates, and this is when things get interesting. Shall we just go over the Bills game first because we had talked about it earlier? 30-13 snaps the Dolphins' 7-game losing streak. Josh Allen just running for his life in this game. Devon Achane ran all over them in this game. They contained the run game, and because of that, the Bills just weren't able to get it done. Couldn't muster up any points. Tua plays a decent game, 2 touchdowns in this game. Jalen Waddle getting loose. At one point, the Bills were offering a first-round pick in 2027 for Jalen Waddle, and they declined it. Jalen Waddle potentially was a future Bill, but at this point, Dolphins get the win. Crushed the Bills at this point, completely owned them. They were already leading by multiple scores entering the fourth quarter, and they just held onto the gas and beat their division rival. So shout out the Dolphins. They are a team that is dead, but they are at least playing upset ball, upsetting the Bills in historic fashion. Who could have predicted such events? Who would have thought? Made some money this week.
Who would have thought? I mean, it's just funny seeing all the Bills fans who are so confident heading into the weekend. They're like, I can't wait for the Buffalo Bills to go on top of the AFC this week and then take back the division lead because there's no way that the Patriots are going to beat a winning team, seemingly forgetting that the Patriots beat the Bills on Sunday Night Football. Like, oh, you just caught us by surprise. We weren't expecting you to be that good. Well, you weren't expecting Miami to be good either. And you keep stumbling into these games where you're underprepared and you're just not expecting your opponent to give you their best shot or be that good. And now the Buffalo Bills see themselves a game behind the Patriots, and the Patriots just won the most important game of their season because they don't face that many other playoff teams or teams that are probably going to make the playoffs this season outside of the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills still have some uphill battles. They still have some tough games on the schedule. And the fact that you lose this game to Miami when you could potentially put yourself tied with the Indianapolis Colts at the top of the AFC, where you could potentially keep pace with the New England Patriots this season. And then after the game, Mike McDaniels is driving by the marquee Buffalo Bills bar in Miami where Bills fans congregate in Miami, trolling you. And this wasn't the first time that you had a close game with the Miami Dolphins either. Don't forget that Thursday night game. That was a 1-possession game, and the Miami Dolphins kept pace with them the entire time. And then suddenly teams are figuring out that it's kind of weird that the Buffalo Bills are protecting Josh Allen from himself. What other MVP caliber quarterback has his offense designed around containing him and him not making too many mistakes? And now, as soon as you shut down James Cook, the Buffalo Bills offense grinds to a halt, and we've pretty much been right about the Buffalo Bills at every single turn since the show has been in existence for the past 5 years, and that has been the exact amount of time that the Buffalo Bills dynasty has been going on. So we've kind of called this team shot for shot, but honestly, it shocks me when the Bills underperform to my expectations. Like, I feel like Stephen A. Smith, when the Cowboys start losing earlier in the season, like, I thought you'd wait until the playoffs at least to melt down, but you're already doing it this early in the season.
Yeah, this Buffalo team, and I look at the rest of their schedule. They face the Bucks next week, then the Texans, then the Steelers, the Bengals, the Patriots, all in a row. And these are all games that they could potentially fall. Bucks, we know they didn't pull out a win against the Patriots, but they're a very good NFC team. Texans defense is no joke. Steelers any given Sunday. And then the Patriots already beat you this year. So, like, these are all games that they could very well fall to. The Bengals potentially could have Joe Burrow back by this game. So, all of these things play a line. You have 5 very pivotal games this upcoming stretch of games in November and December. And you could be looking at a team that potentially, yes, I think they still make the playoffs. And yes, they probably win 3 of 5 of these games, but I think they still fall. And at this point, by the time they face the Patriots, this could be ultimately a division that's already wrapped up if the Patriots keep winning the way they do. So I would agree with you in the sense that we've kind of been on the money for the Bills. I've been a little bit nicer to them, but for the most part, we've given them the benefit of the doubt. We've said, like, okay, you want to beat the Chiefs, go out and beat the Chiefs, and they haven't. We said, go out and beat the Patriots, go out and beat the teams that are in front of you. You haven't. So at this point, like, the Bills, they've lost their chance for us to believe in them. They need to prove to us that they are the Super Bowl contender that the media is saying they are. Because right now I don't see it, especially with how bad this defense is.
Yeah, and they're not getting any better because at the beginning of the year, we are going over Vegas's prediction for the Bills to go undefeated coming into the season. We're like, how crazy is that? The Buffalo Bills brought the same exact team back and they expect to win every single game. That always works out. And what we're seeing is this team get gashed with injuries, and then everyone's like, Joey Bosa is going to be the savior for this team. Like, don't forget, Joey Bosa is a choker too. He had 2 key pivotal penalties in that Jacksonville Jaguars meltdown that the Chargers had. And then he's also kind of had his own injury issues. And now you're starting to see the offensive line get banged up. You see Dalton Kincaid get banged up for this team. So it's like we've been on the money for the Buffalo Bills. Like, we've never been a believer in this team. So it'll be interesting to see how the next few weeks go for them, because that matchup versus Tampa is going to say a lot again about both of those teams, because you're going to have 2 teams that at one point were vying for the number 1 seed in their conference, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's still within reach. Same for the Buffalo Bills. So it's going to be a pivotal game where it could be really make or break for either of these teams. And the thing is, it's a lot more make or break for the Buffalo Bills because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a much bigger cushion in their division, where the Buffalo Bills are already trailing. So they have to play in desperation mode. So if you come out and lose to Tampa,
it could be over. Which the Bucks, that's a good team to pivot to as we talk about Patriots and Bucks. This was a game that we both kind of expected the Bucks to win the game. I expected it to be fairly close, but ultimately the Patriots prevail. Drake May struggled a little bit out of the gate, but the highlight of this game for me was the arrival of Trevion Henderson. I've been talking about him all year long. I said, this guy, as soon as they start to give him the workload, he is going to be a monster for them. He ripped off a 70-yard run. He had 2 touchdowns, over 147 rushing yards, 150 total scrimmage yards. He was the guy that ultimately brought them over the top. Finally, they leaned on their rookie. He was a stud. We had a huge play by Kyle Williams, another rookie out of this draft. He was exceptional for them. The Patriots continued on with their defensive prowess as well. And it wasn't like the Bucks didn't give them their best shot. Baker played a good game, threw for almost 300 yards and rushed for over 100 yards. So it wasn't like the Bucks didn't give them their best shot. Bucks played well, but Patriots were just the better team at the end of the day.
yeah, and Brian Daboll is absolutely diabolical at this point, because you have Trevion Henderson just sitting behind Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson. People are like, that's weird. Patriots have a lot of fumble issues, and it felt like they were saving Trevion Henderson. I know a lot of fantasy owners already bailed on him, but that's why we pay attention to real football. But Trevion Henderson goes off in this game, and the thing I love is that the report came out that Stephon Diggs is just dogging this guy at halftime, saying, you can't outrun anybody. You can't break tackles. You can't create any separation. Stephon Diggs was trash talking Trevion Henderson, gets this guy fired up, and then he responds to it, goes for 147 yards. And I know everyone's talked about this, but I'll reiterate it. The fact that he had the awareness to say, should I score? or should I slide? And they gave him the go ahead to go ahead and get that touchdown so he could finish with 147 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But he made a clutch run and iced the game. And he was a player that was about to sacrifice a touchdown as a rookie when he hasn't gotten that much playing time, to check with his coaching staff to see would it be better if we kneel this game out and milk a little bit more clock so Baker Mayfield can't touch the ball anymore, because you never know what can happen. So the fact that we're seeing that, and then the Patriots going for it on 4th down, and they don't even run the ball. They trust Drake May to throw for it. And then he throws into the corner of the end zone. Perfect pass to Stephon Diggs. He has an incredible throw to Williams where he's standing in the pocket, gets hit, delivers the ball perfectly. I mean, and then he also had a 59-yard pass downfield. It was the 6th longest pass by any other quarterback, and now he is the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 2,500 yards, have a 70+% completion percentage, rush for over 250 yards with 5 or fewer interceptions. I mean, this guy is already the favorite for the Vegas MVP, and it feels surreal to me because this was the team we picked to go 10-7 coming into the year. I'm like, they'll be in the wild card mix with like the Broncos, the Chargers, those teams. And now this is going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And I said last week, if they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they will be the number 1 seed. They will beat Buffalo again. And right now, this looks like a team that still has a good way to go to reach their full potential, especially on defense.
Oh, 100%. I agree. This was a game that it felt like the Patriots coming out party for me. I understand, like, the Bills was kind of the precursor to that, but they have had a lot of easy games, right? They faced the Saints and Browns and Titans and whatnot, Falcons. But the Bucks game, the Bucks are a good team. You mentioned that they might be in that 1 seed conversation in the NFC, and I think they're still very much in it. But between their schedule moving forward, along with just how they've been winning these games, grinding it out, I don't think we've seen the best of the Patriots. I'm not even sure if we've seen the best of Drake May yet at this point. Come next season, maybe they get another receiver and they start making noise. Um, Also, with the Patriots, we talk about the Bills and how their offense is kind of geared around getting it to every guy. Yet the Patriots are the only team in the NFL that has 6 games with a different leading receiver in the NFL, something the Bills do not have. We've had, I believe, 13 different guys score a touchdown for the Patriots this season. So that's another big stat to mention as well. They're getting it to everybody. It feels like it's a pretty egoless team at this point. Trevion Henderson, a guy who hasn't had a lot of touchdowns this year. Yes, this past week was 2 of the 3 touchdowns he scored. And to have the wherewithal to look over to the sideline, this feels like the Patriots not only coming out that they're a good team, but coming out that they're a great team. A team that could make a conference championship, potentially a Super Bowl this year. And we believed in the Patriots entering the season. We thought they were going to make the playoffs. But for what they've done has exceeded anybody's expectation of what the Patriots were to become. I didn't think Drake May was going to be this good, nor did I think this team was going to be 8-2, 10 games in.
Yeah, and like we picked this team to go 10-7. Now I'm thinking like, I don't know, maybe 13-4 at this point, I think would be realistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go 14-3. But this is also a team with Drake May. He still doesn't have like that number 1 guy on offense, and he's elevating his team as a second year quarterback, and he's not making mistakes, and he's able to deliver the ball accurately while he's getting drilled in the pocket. And even if you're a Patriots hater, even if you don't like the Patriots at all, you have to admit now that this team is kind of just getting auriful now, especially with, Stephon Diggs this season, like making fun of Trayvon Henderson, kind of just ripping him in the locker room. And then also Mike Vrabel, and then hearing reports of this team coming in on their off day. They had 40, I believe it was 41 of the starters came in to lift on their off day on Monday last week. And then they were going to do something, get some players some extra reps yesterday. But since they have a short turnaround, they thought it'd be better for a player meeting. You see Drake May and Josh McDaniels having already building chemistry on offense. I'm like, this is a team that I would not be surprised to see them wind up in the Super Bowl this year, because usually you see those surprise teams like this. That's when they make the run. And the Chiefs are having a little bit of an off year. And, if Rashee Rice goes down, I still think that this could be a team where when you have Mike Vrabel, he's by far the favorite for coach of the year right now. And he can go toe to toe with any coach in the AFC.
100%. If I look at the AFC, and we're going to go over the player picture after we recap all these games, but I look at the AFC, and really the only threat that I truly see for them is the Chiefs. Got to give the respect to them, but the Chiefs have had their issues this year, both with the suspension of Rashee Rice and everything else. They still, I would say, are their biggest contemporaries, but they've proven to beat Buffalo. I don't believe in anybody in the AFC North or South. Maybe the Chargers, but the Patriots always beat the Chargers. So really, it's the Chiefs. If the Chiefs can't beat the Patriots, then I think we see them in the Super Bowl at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think it'd be an interesting Super Bowl, especially if we get, like a Drake May and Jared Goff matchup, Dan Campbell versus Mike Vrabel. You know, I mean, that would probably be the highest testosterone that's been in the Super Bowl in a long time as far as the head coaches. Dan Campbell versus Mike Vrabel in the Super Bowl. I'll take that.
Yeah, and what did we say entering this Lions game? Good game to pivot to. We have Dan Campbell with the second best record since 2022 coming off a loss, and they came back with the vengeance. Jared Goff, nearly perfect in this game. Jahmyr Gibbs, practically perfect as well. Jameson Williams, we start to have Dan Campbell making the play calls in this game. Their main focus, getting it to Jameson Williams, and what did he do? 120, 6 catches, a touchdown with a big 41-yard pass as well. Amon-Ra's getting going. Sam Laporta's getting going. And next thing you know, they dropped 44 points on the Commanders with Marcus Mariota. Absolute cinema.
Yeah, we were making fun of the Bills on Monday Night Football for when Sean McDermott was wearing glasses as negative aura. I'm like, really? This guy's wearing glasses right now? He looks like a dork, and he's your head coach. And now Dan Campbell is calling plays, and he put glasses on. But I'm like, it's kind of funny. It's like kind of like goofy with him wearing glasses, and he has like the boomer thing where he's looking at his phone calling plays, and then he's just casually lighting you up as the former tight end with getting Jahmyr Gibbs 172 total yards. And then this offense coming back. I never really panicked with this Detroit Lions team. I still think they'll end up winning their division and they have as good a shot as any team to make the Super Bowl this year. But it's just nice when you see this offense absolutely erupt because, it feels like this team has been good for a while. So now they're starting to just have these games where they tend to sleepwalk, but every once in a while you have to remind a team like, hey, we still have one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the league.
Yeah, and I'll say like the losses that they've had are against good teams. Vikings always play close with them. They lost to the Chiefs and they lost to the Packers in week 1. Week 1 shouldn't even count. It's practically a preseason game. So we're looking at arguably the best team in the NFC right now. Maybe the Eagles take that throne or the Rams do, but they're right in that mix. They're going to play against the Eagles on primetime this week. We'll make sure to cover that as well, but their offense is efficient. Their defense, I think, post Aaron Glenn is better than ever in the Dan Campbell era. I understand that this Commanders team is banged up. Their leading receiver was Traylon Burks. We all know who Traylon Burks is at this point, but Commanders completely in disarray. Not a lot to say about them. Their season's lost. Gina Daniels is hurt for a long time, potentially on the IR. So not a lot to say there, but Lions come back with a roar, coming back from a loss. Best record since 2022 coming off a loss. So credits to them.
What will Washington do on this play?
Oh, yes, dude. Yes. We didn't even talk about Trump. Trump was literally calling the game. And there's this meme that I think is fitting that coming back from halftime and you just take a gummy and you come back and you just see Trump calling the game with everyone in the booth. That was peak. I mean, say what you will, if you're a fan of the president or not, Donald Trump, the person, entertaining guy, especially with the football aura around him, wants to name the Commanders Stadium after himself. Pretty hilarious. But also, did you watch the play? He's like, they're like, oh, call this play. He's like, yes, this play coming up. Wow. And it's just a run up the gut for like 3 yards. He's like, oh, wow. Yes, very good.
What will they do?
What did you think of?
Whoa.
Yeah. Their quarterback needs to stop getting hurt. We need to look into them not getting hurt. Yeah,
Have they
that
thought of
Trump,
putting tariffs on their opponent?
perhaps that would do something. We don't know. But yeah, Trump, absolutely cinematic. If his presidency, when it's over, or even during his presidency, he wants to call more games, I'm in for it.
Yeah, and he's just like, even if you hate the guy, he's just a funny person to insert in situations. And I get why there's a lot of venom and there's a lot of drama and why he kind of triggers a lot of people, but he's kind of just he's like a cartoon character. It's like inserting like Cartman from South Park. It'd be like if he was calling the game. Like he's kind of just like become a like cartoonish version of himself. And like cuz he's kind of like getting like a little old now, so he's starting to get like a little senile, so it's like kind of get that old man brain a little bit. But he just like always makes something up like, "Wow, this is great. Fantastic. I love it. Wow."
Yeah, rave reviews for Trump. But not so rave for a city he once built himself. New York against the Bears. Literally got Pillsbury Dayball fired. They had a lead entering into the fourth quarter. It looked like they were on their path to their third consecutive win. They were up 20-10 in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes left. Young Hoku returns from the ashes, kicks a field goal. It's 20-10. Giants are looking good. And then with 4 minutes left, the Bears score back-to-back touchdowns to win the game. Gets Brian Daboll fired. They are now 0-6 away. Jackson Dart goes into concussion protocol. Does not play a great game by any means, but Giants and Bears. Do you have more stock in the Bears after this game? Do you believe in Caleb Williams a little bit more? Or is this more on the Giants just fumbling yet another fourth quarter game?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like the Bears and the Broncos have a lot of similarities this season where maybe the Broncos defense is better and the Bears offense is better, but like the Bears, say what you will about them, their offense at least looks legit. I could not see a Chicago Bears offense looking this good, especially now you have Monungai. You have a legitimate running back on your team. Loveland has been exceptional for you. And then Caleb Williams is starting to actually put together game winning drives, which is good. It's what you want to see from him. But I don't think that this team could go toe to toe with Philadelphia or Detroit in the playoffs. But, you know, they are very similar to Denver, where they've had back to back week nows where they've had to come back in the fourth quarter. You had that epic Cincinnati game. And now you have this game versus the Giants. So it's like, it is a little bit concerning, though, that kind of Jackson Dart was cutting you up in Chicago before he went into concussion protocol.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think Jackson Dart, he's played great this year, so I won't take too much stock in that. But the Bears offense, I mean, Caleb Williams last year definitely had his struggles. And, with Matt Eberflus, they inject Ben Johnson in there. And Ben Johnson, I think, has proven that he can definitely run an offense. D Swift has played well for them this year. Roma Dunze has taken that second year leap for them. And Caleb Williams could potentially be the first quarterback in Bears history to have 4,000 yards. It only took him 120 years to do so, but you know what? Now the time is now. He's on track for 4,000 passing yards. He's still not a perfect quarterback. There's still a lot to develop with him. Didn't play an amazing game, but coming back, he also rushed for another 63 yards, so he played well there. But I like what I've seen from the Bears offense. I don't know if they're going to win a playoff game, but I think they're going to make the playoffs, which I think is a big step for the Bears coming what they've seen the last few years.
Yeah, I think you can win a playoff game potentially, but you're gonna have to think about it. Like, do you think they could beat the Rams, Eagles,
No.
Lions, or Tampa Bay Bucks in the first round? And maybe you beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they're injured. If Bucky Irving's still out, if Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, their defense is a little bit more banged up. But best case scenario, you play Tampa in the first round, and then you're looking at probably a guaranteed loss. So I don't think this team is ready for a playoff win yet.
I would agree. But let's cover two teams that will not be making the playoffs this year. Surprise, surprise, Jets and Browns. The battle of the bad. We got to see it in full effect. Dylan Gabriel, Justin Fields. Justin Fields, for now the third time this year, has thrown for less than 50 yards passing. 42 yards, 6 of 11. But they got the win. Good for them. They had 2 punt return touchdowns for them. They've won 2 consecutive games. So they played well. They had a kickoff return, touchdown, and a punt return. So credits to them. But football was played on Sunday. Browns and Jets. Thoughts on the game that was?
I know. I am all in at this point on St. Glenn and the New York Jets because you now have the Jets start out 0-7, and every day now in practice, it's going to be. I remember when I was in Detroit and we started 0-7, and then we came back and we almost made the playoffs. And I believe we can do this on this team. And now you're starting to see them win games. And you beat the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns do have a tough defense, and you're making do with Justin Fields, but huge loss in Garrett Wilson. But overall, I think you're seeing that Aaron Glenn is actually having at least an effect on this team, and he might not be the best straight up X's and O's coach, but I do think he is kind of a good motivational guy. I think he's a good players coach and people like him. So if he can surround himself with good coordinators, I could see if anyone can maybe turn around a little bit of the negative culture around the New York Jets. Maybe it does have to be someone like an Aaron Glenn who just has that kind of more motivational style as a head coach. And I think it's working because even in some of their losses they have played hard. You had that game versus the Steelers that you lost, and you were right in that game. You had the Miami Dolphins game where you're competing there. So you have played hard
Buck
all
game.
year long. And Thursday night will be a big test for you. And Aaron Glenn had high praise for the New England Patriots. So credit to him, like acknowledging another divisional opponent.
Yeah, I said even when they were losing, I'm like, I don't think this team is an 0-17 bad. You highlighted the Steelers game and Bucks game as well. But like they've had a lot of close losses in this game. The Broncos game in London, that was another game that came down to the wire. Even the Panthers game was fairly close. The Dolphins game, like a lot of their losses, really their only blowouts were against Buffalo and the Cowboys. Which are just 2 teams that are drastically overmatched for them. So really, like a lot of these games have been a lot closer. Credits to them with the Bengals win last week, and then now this game against the Browns. I don't think they're gonna, make too much noise, but I think they still have more wins in them, especially when they go and face teams like the Falcons and Dolphins and Saints later on. So if this is a team that finishes 6-11 despite their bad start, I think that's going to be a win for this team, especially as they start to look for their future quarterback, because Justin Fields is clearly not the answer. I think this team is a lot better than their record shows. I think they probably should have won maybe 2 more games out of this mix, but credits to them. As far as the Browns, Dylan Gabriel, another somewhat shaky performance for them. The very weird aura around Cleveland, whether it's choosing between a serial rapist, Dylan Gabriel, or Shador Sanders, doesn't seem like Dylan Gabriel's the guy. He's completing 50% of his passes, not playing excellent football. Is it time for them to start Shador Sanders for the Cleveland Browns?
No, he fell for a reason, and then also maybe you play him the last game of the season just to see what you have. But who is Dylan Gabriel supposed to throw to? Because your number one target is Jerry Judy. I remember when you were calling him Jerry Booty and bullying him on this show and talking about how awful he
Yes.
is. So for a rookie quarterback, you're throwing him into a situation with the Cleveland Browns, who have typically had a good run game historically, but you have Judkins, who had 22 attempts for 75 yards. He's only averaging 3 yards per carry. So Dylan Gabriel's just in a tough situation right now. Maybe he isn't the guy, but I don't think you can just, I'd guess, throw him away just yet until he has a real chance because overall this offense has been terrible and it hasn't just been Dylan Gabriel. I feel like you just don't have enough talent there. And you thrived the past few years on what? Nick Chubb being elite and being a top 5 running back. Now you don't have that, and that's been a big problem for Kevin Stefanski.
Mm-hmm. Especially because Kevin Stefanski's a guy that kind of leans on the run, and they don't have that good running back anymore. And I agree with the receiver core. I still stand by the fact that I don't think Jerry Judy's a legitimate number 1. It's probably better as a 2, and he's great as a 3. The one highlight for the Browns, I do like their rookie tight end, Harold Fannin. He's been good for them. But otherwise, I just think they just have a lot of work to do. Their defense has taken a step back from years past. And ultimately, these are two teams that are not the greatest. But Dylan Gabriel, he's in a tough situation in Cleveland. People are calling for Shador at this point. And is it fair to Dylan Gabriel? I don't think so. He won the job. He deserves his right. So give him maybe another week and see how he plays. But tough game for the Browns yet again.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I feel like they're just gonna play Shador just the last week of the season to see how he looks, but we'll see. And then I think we had another terrible game in the 1 o'clock slate here as well.
Saints Panthers probably, or is that four? That
Yeah,
was a four. Yeah, and then we had the Ravens Vikings. We'll talk about that after. But Saints Panthers. Saints get another win. Tyler Shaw plays a good game. Has 2 touchdowns, 300 yards. Um, and they scrape out a win. Panthers, you know, they're a scrappy team, but ultimately don't have too much to say. I give credits to the Saints. This is a division win, big win for them. They've been reeling over the last few weeks, but they get their win. They beat the Panthers, and Panthers, they had a big win against the Packers, probably still coming off of that high. Entering the week, fell flat against the Saints, but not a whole lot to say about this game. Any thoughts on Saints and Panthers?
yeah. I mean, with the Panthers, they've been a nice story, but do I think they're gonna make the playoffs? Probably not. I think they're still bound for somewhere around 8-9, 8-1, because it seems like every time they get above 500, they immediately become allergic to having a winning record and fall down to 500 or having a losing record. And even when they have beat teams, it seemed like the offense has been a struggle bus. Okay, so if Rico Dowdle rushes for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, what does that leave you with? 2 touchdowns. Where are you getting the other two or three that you need? Like, this isn't a team that can really overcome like facing an NFL team on their best day. Kind of have to be a combination of their off day and getting a little bit lucky on offense. So I think the Panthers have been a nice story, but it's just a reality check, I feel like, for the NFL and just fans as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree for the Panthers. They're not going to make the playoffs. I think if they're 8-9, it's a successful season. Coming around, they've had a lot worse in the past year, so I'm okay with them there. But let's talk about a team that is getting hot right now. We'll talk about the Ravens. They've won 3 straight games. Lamar came back, gets the win against the Vikings, and their offense is starting to get back into gear. And most importantly, their defense is starting to pick it up, which was definitely lacking in weeks past. JJ McCarthy struggles in this game, has 2 picks, but they contain the run for the most part. They forced 2 fumbles. And the Ravens now are looking like they could potentially jump the Steelers for the division lead. Thoughts on the Ravens bouncing back from 1-5? They're now sitting at 4-5.
Yeah, I said coming into Sunday night, if the Los Angeles Chargers beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens will win the division. I thought that was a game where if the Steelers just drop it on prime time again, 2 out of 3 weeks, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers' offense not show up on prime time. We see Jordan Love score 5 straight times. How's that looking after the past 2 weeks from the Packers? And then the Chargers obliterate you on national TV. And then also, what was the other game you lost on national television? Oh, right, versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So this team has been allergic to success in prime time, and now the Baltimore Ravens are getting hot. So it's like, of course. And the reason why the Ravens defense wasn't that good earlier in the season is because Roquan Smith was injured. I mean, Roquan Smith is one of the best at what he does in the NFL, if not the best at his position. So obviously, you're off defense isn't going to be the same. And then you get Lamar back. Yeah, you're definitely going to be able to hop the Steelers. You still play them twice, and the Steelers have some tough games. They still have the Bills later on the schedule. So I definitely think that the Ravens are kind of in control of their own destiny right now. And the interesting thing was Lamar Jackson had his 100th career game. Um, and Lamar Jackson, after playing his 100th career game, has 73 wins, which is fourth in NFL history behind Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Roger Staubach. who have 78 wins for Mahomes, 76 for Brady, and Roger Staubach also has 76, so he's only 5 games behind number one. He has 180 passing touchdowns, which is six in the NFL. He has 50 interceptions, which is the fewest in the NFL for playing 100 games. And then he also accounts for 2,883 team points, which is the most in NFL history through their first 100 games.
Yeah, that's an amazing stat. And he's played exceptional. I mean, obviously, he'll go down as the greatest running quarterback of all time. But I'm curious to know with Lamar, like, obviously, this year has been a tough slate for them. But in the event that Lamar wins a Super Bowl, in like whether it be this year or next year, do you think that this is going to anoint him in that top 10 conversation where he's clearly shown like he has the most rushing yards in NFL history? He's rushed for 1,000 yards twice for a for a quarterback, which is unheard of. Obviously, he's winning games at a high pace. Pretty much the only guy ahead of him is Mahomes in this case. But if Lamar gets in a Super Bowl title, where do you think that puts him as an all-time great quarterback, whether it be in this generation or just in general?
Yeah, I think in this generation, if he gets a Super Bowl, he could potentially be number two to Patrick Mahomes because he has been the best mobile quarterback of all time. And I think you can argue him as probably a top 10 quarterback of all time. And he will be in that conversation because through his first 100 games, he has the most total points of any quarterback. And then also having the fewest interceptions, which is really not something I was expecting to see for Lamar Jackson. So I think that's definitely been a underrated part of his game here. So I definitely think he's always going to be at least in the top 10 conversation because he's has the most unique skill set as a quarterback and he's been the best at what he does, which is rushing the ball and being able to create explosive plays. And this season especially, I feel like he's just found his groove in the pocket as a passer where it seems like something clicked this year and he's just seeing the field differently.
Yeah, and I would even echo last year, he kind of was in that bag as well. But this is a guy that he started off not an excellent passer. This year, he's throwing 70% completion rating, has one interception, and he has 1,200 yards currently. So he's on track for what would have been about 4,000 yards, along with rushing the ball at an effective rate as well. So I think for him, at this point, you can argue he's the second best quarterback in the league, anyways, behind Mahomes. But you add into the mix his influence on the game, somebody that revolutionized the quarterback position, quarterbacks needing to be more mobile in the modern era. He's the face of that movement, I feel like. You can shout out guys like Cam Newton, you can shout out Michael Vicks, Josh Allen to the world, but Lamar is really the precipice of that modern quarterback. So I think for his influence alone, he'll be a top 10 quarterback when it's all said and done with a Super Bowl win. So I hope he gets it. And I still think that if this team can go on a run, that they still can make the Super Bowl, but they have to prove that they can show up in the playoffs, which has definitely been Lamar's kryptonite and the Ravens' kryptonite over the last several years.
Yeah, especially with how good the Patriots have been at stopping the run. So if your defense isn't going to show up either, like the Colts will be a tough team for them to match up with, and then getting over the mental gymnastics of the Chiefs. So definitely think they'll win their division though.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking of division teams, Jags and Texans. This is actually a great game that we talked about. They were down 29 to nothing or 29 to 10 entering the fourth quarter. The Texans come roaring back. Davis Mills with a legacy game has a huge game. They get the win, scoring 26 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win. Woody Marks playing well for them. I believe he's a rookie out of USC for them. He's played great for them, filling in for some injured Joe Mixon and Nick Chubbs of the world. But Texans squeak out a win. This is a similar story where we talk about the Ravens potentially leaping the Steelers. With this win, do you feel the Texans can leap that of the Jaguars and potentially steal a playoff spot from the Jags?
Yeah, no, I definitely think they can steal a playoff spot from the Jags, especially with the Houston Texans. I look at this team, I see a coach that still has the locker room, and I see a team that actually does something really well and maybe better than anyone else in the NFL, which is wreak havoc on defense. And I think they do have the best defense in the NFL, especially with Will Anderson Jr., especially with Danielle Hunter. And then also, for other NFL teams out there, this is why you should keep your backup quarterback and have the same backup quarterback, especially when he's proven he can be a competent quarterback at times. Davis Mills coming into this game throwing for 292, 2 touchdowns, averaging 10 yards per attempt. He did have one interception, but he was only sacked 2 times. And then he made the huge rush at the end of the game to get the touchdown that put them on top. I mean, a huge game for Davis Mills where he really found his groove in the fourth quarter. So the Texans had been on a little bit of a heater. Didn't like that loss to Denver, but I do think potentially they could be a team that could threaten. And if they do make the playoffs, this isn't a defense that you really want to go up against, especially if they're matching up with you in December, in January, when it gets cold. This is going to be a tough out. And the fact that they were able to just come alive, drop 36 points against the divisional opponent and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then they completely shut them out in the fourth quarter. And then they made the Jaguars look lost. Trevor Lawrence only had 158 yards passing at this point. Like,
Yeah, got to him 5 times too. I think the biggest trip for the Texans is going to be when they face the Bills, Colts, and Chiefs, all within a 17-game stretch. If they can win 2 of 3 out of that mix, then I think they've arrived. I think they'll be in that mix. We saw what they did against the Chargers in the playoffs last year. This defense is exceptional. CJ Stroud wasn't playing in this game. Didn't matter. Davis Mills proving to be a solid backup for them. So I think depending on how they go these next 4 games, they face the Titans this week, and then they'll face Bills, Colts, and Chiefs, all teams that are in that playoff hunt as well. If they can get 2 of 3, they can beat one of the 2 of those 3 teams, then I think this team is bound for the playoffs.
yeah, and I definitely think they can beat the Bills. They have beat the Bills in the past. And if CJ Stroud comes back, this is a team that the offense was starting to come together. Nico Collins did his thing. I mean, 7 receptions, 136 yards, averaging 19 yards per catch. Definitely like to see that. Then Dalton Schultz getting going. Higgins is starting to be a factor as well now.
Yeah. But let's pivot to the 4 o'clock slates. We have the Seahawks and Cardinals. We talked about them on the top 5 teams of the Brickyard. Seahawks were mentioned there. But Seahawks, this game for me felt like just a defensive mastermind. We had DeMarcus Lawrence with 2 20-yard fumble recovery touchdowns. First player to do that in NFL history. And they didn't really need to do much on offense. Sam Darnold, I think, threw for a total of 178 yards. Running game was getting going, rushed for over 200 yards. JSN proving to be arguably a top 5 wide receiver this season. So this game, I think, speaks more to the Seahawks. We already know what we get from the Cardinals. Trey McBride plays excellent in this game, but ultimately this goes to the Seahawks. Seahawks, great overall win for them, winning on all 3 levels.
Yeah, Sam Darnold with 12 pass attempts. That's how you win football games in the NFL. You have a quarterback like Sam Darnold that, even though he has played well this season, you don't want to have to necessarily rely on him. And the fact that he only had to have 12 attempts, I think this was big. And then Seattle, I like that they are just consistently blowing teams out. You have people who compare them to teams in the past, like the Vikings with Kirk Cousins. The difference is with this team and other middling teams is that their defense is exceptional and it's one of the best units in the NFL, especially against the run. And then also they've been just dominating people. Like on the road, they've been able to do it at home against the divisional opponent. So I think that, and then having the best receiver in the NFL and having Walker and Charbonnet both go for 14 attempts respectively, both of them going for 60 plus yards and averaging more than 4 yards per carry. That's also big where you're able to ice this game, but really impressed with their rookie head coach here, McDonald. Excellent season so far for him.
Yeah, and I think he should be in that coach of the year conversation with the Vrabels of the world. The way the Seahawks team has exceeded expectations. Sam Darnold, we didn't know whether that Vikings year was going to be a fluke. That's proven to not be the case. JSN, I had my doubts entering the season. Is he the guy? He's proven time and time again that he is that guy. So I love to see what they've been. And then relying on not just Kenneth Walker, but also Zach Charbonnet, the two-headed monster that is. They've been exceptional. You even got Rashid Shaheed involved in the run game. So Seahawks are going places. I think that they can win a playoff game at this point, depending on who they match up with. So I've loved what I've seen from them so far.
But they have a big showdown next week against the Rams, and now they're both 7-2, which is insane. They're in the same division, and now was the Bills tracking with the Patriots. It was the Broncos and the Chiefs tracking with each other. Now it's the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. And one thing has to give: where you have a unstoppable force versus an immovable object, and the Rams just went out there and dropped 42 points. Matthew Stafford having another game where he throws for 4 touchdowns, now being the first quarterback in NFL history to go through a 6 game stretch with 20 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tom Brady talking to him after the game saying, "You have 8 more years of football left," after there are rumors this season of Matthew Stafford potentially retiring. And now people are talking about him playing 8 more years this season. And it's been a race between him, Drake May, and Jonathan Taylor at this point for the most valuable player. So definitely love what I'm seeing with the Rams. And I haven't seen them, I feel like, similarly to the Chiefs, just come out and dominate like this to a level in the regular season in a long time. And the fact that this team has just slowly, progressively been heating up as the season goes on, I think them and Philadelphia and Detroit are all on a collision course at this point.
Yeah, I think we're set up for a great playoff run. The Rams, they took care of business. They dropped 42. And I give credit to the Niners. Mac Jones played a good game, had 300 passing yards, played well, but really it's their ability to stop the run. They maintained Christian McCaffrey, didn't really get the run game going in this one for the Niners. And the Rams just look inevitable. I mentioned it when you talked about the top five. Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams. Plus, you have Kyron Williams and Matt Stafford playing his best football of his career, arguably. So you have all those three things going for you. Never mind the fact that you have the Jared Verses of the world on the other side of it. This team looks like a team that could make the Super Bowl, if nothing else, at least an NFC title game. So I'd love to see this team. I think if they face the Eagles, they could beat them today. They face the Lions. I think that's another great game that they could potentially win. This is a team that is arguably the best team in the NFC right now.
Yeah, and it will be a hell of a shootout and a hell of a game if they do play the Detroit Lions in the playoffs and the Philadelphia Eagles. It's been the past 2 games for both of those teams that they've matched up with have been sensational. So definitely looking forward to that. And then speaking of the Lions, I mean, they destroyed the Commanders, kind of kicking a sad puppy when he's down, unfortunately. Jaden Daniels out. Commanders fans are depressed. You get a flyover from Air Force One. That's cool. But yeah, Lions kind of just go out there, dominate. Dan Campbell takes over as a play caller. Not too much else to say about that.
Yeah, and we had covered that game earlier. Trump had an appearance in that game. Very exciting, but coming back from a loss. Best record coming off a loss since 2022 outside of the Chiefs. So Lions bounce back as we predicted. So another win for the Brickyard and for the Lions. But 2 more primetime games to cover. Chargers, Steelers. Chargers take care of business, shut down the Steelers. Couldn't get the run game going. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play a great game by any means. And then really it just came down to fundamental defense for them, getting to the quarterback. And then Justin Herbert playing a solid game. Kamani Vidal filling in for the injured Amarian Hampton. He's been a great addition for them. Lad McConkey starting to get going for them. So Chargers get back to their winning ways, starts to get back to playing fundamental football and just shutting down the Steelers entirely.
Yeah, and the Chargers defense has been what's carried them the past 2 years, and their offense was able to get it done this game. 25 points is definitely solid, but you go out there on prime time and dominate the Steelers. And this was a big test for both of these teams. I feel like just as a temperature check for where are the Chargers, where the Steelers at this point in the season. And the Steelers showed that, well, they're not really a legitimate contender, more of a first half of the season type of team. How many times are we going to see DK Metcalf not catch it, or him and Aaron Rodgers fail to convert a third down at this point? And then, the Steelers' run game with Jalen Warren, if they're like, yeah, I'll get going at some point. Oh, the run game hasn't even got going yet. Are you sure the Steelers' run game is going to get going at any point this season? I don't think so, because like Jalen Warren was a good complement to Najee Harris, but I never once, as a Steelers fan, looked at Jalen Warren and was like, I think he could be the bell cow for this team. I don't think he can go out and just do what James Conner did when he left Le'Veon Bell and went to Arizona. I think Jalen Warren's like a really good player, but he's not your 17 game starter.
Yeah, you know what it kind of reminds me of, and I don't know if their play styles are the same, but it reminds me of like when the Packers moved on from Aaron Jones, or Aaron Jones was banged up and they had AJ Dillon for a while. AJ Dillon, similar to the scent where he's a good running back, but is he a great running back at that time? I think Jalen Warren's a guy that will have some good games for you, but I think he's more in the class of a DeAndre Swift than he is for a guy that is in that class of the elite running backs. He's definitely not a Jonathan Taylor of the world or a Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs level. He's a guy that he's probably better in a Seattle-like offense where there's like another guy complementing his style. And I just don't think they have that right now. Kenneth Gainwell hasn't really been playing much for them. He's been their main focal point in the rushing game. I think it's either time to either sign another running back or see what you have with maybe your rookie running backs. But the running game hasn't been going. The Steelers, it feels like they started off hot and now they just continue to damper down. I think we had them at 9-8, which I think is going to happen again for the Steelers for what feels like the 15th year in a row. But just the same old Steelers. They proved to me on Sunday night that they are what they've been my entire life, it feels like. Just post Big Ben, a solid team that might make the playoffs, but they're going to be a first round exit yet again.
Yeah, I picked them to go 8-1, and I still think it's in the cards. I could definitely see them tying with, I don't know, just another mediocre team. Maybe the Browns. Maybe they tie with the Browns this season.
Perhaps. But you know what? Let's talk about we started the preview with the worst Thursday night game. Why not end it with the worst Monday night game? 0-0 score entering the second half. The Eagles get the win 10-7. In this game for me, I officially am on fraud alert for the Packers. You saw them on my worst top 5, but the Packers, between their defense supposing to be this amazing stout defense, you lose to the Panthers last week. The main focal point for them that I'm worried about is you have Jordan Love, a guy who I believe is a good quarterback, top 10 level quarterback, but he also has these games where everything is hard for him. In this game, it felt like everything was just not working for them. Their running game, Josh Jacobs does the best he can, but doesn't really get going the way we see Josh Jacobs do in the past. The receivers are fun, but I'm disappointed that I haven't seen a Matthew Golden um, awakening yet. A guy who I think is super talented and who could very well be a top receiver in the NFL, especially from what I saw with him at Texas last year. But it's the same old Packers in the sense that their weapons are good but not great. Their running game is good but not great. And Jordan Love can be great, but sometimes just have these games where he's completing 50% of his passes. He's throwing inaccurate balls. He's holding the ball too long. The Packers, at this point, I just think are potentially a fraudulent team in the sense that are they going to win a playoff game? I think they should, but are they the best team? I look at the Rams as a better team, the Lions. I see the Seahawks as a better team. The Eagles proved today that they are a better team as well. So I don't think the Packers are going to win a playoff game at this point. I think they're going to be a first round exit.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to win a playoff game in the first round, especially in the NFC this year. So you could get to a point later in the season where we could be questioning if they're going to make the playoffs or not. And then Micah Parsons kind of disappearing. Is he a great fit in Green Bay? But we'll see with the Packers. Typically, Matt LaFleur teams turn it up after Thanksgiving. So that Thanksgiving game with the Lions is going to be a real test. And then when they match up with the Bears, this season is going to be a really good temperature check just for both teams. Okay, like how legit are the Bears at this point, and quite how bad are the Packers at this point. So interested to see that. And then the Eagles, like I, I kind of give them a pass because you won the Super Bowl last year. It's sub freezing temperatures. I don't want to be outside when it's below freezing. It's 31 degrees. And it seemed like both of these teams were just getting used to playing in the cold for the first time this season, where they really hadn't experienced like temperature like that. Yeah. And they're professionals. It's not really an excuse, but it's like kind of just that first initial shock. So it's like I kind of give both teams a pass.
I'll give them a pass. The Eagles have proven they've proven that in these shootouts or in these tight defensive games that they're going to find ways to win. They had that gutsy fourth quarter call that ended up going their way, trying to go for the kill, go for that touchdown with AJ Brown. Doesn't pan out, but ultimately their defense stepped up. They got to the quarterback. They stacked Jordan Love 3 times. And they stopped the run for the most part. So the Eagles, I'm not overly concerned about them. They've had their moments offensively this year that haven't been exceptional. Still a little worried about Saquon, not quite being the Saquon of last year, but they're still sitting at 7-2. They're going to easily win their division for the first time, winning back to back in over 20 years. So I still believe in the Eagles. I think they're still going to be fine, but the Packers, I'm very much concerned about at this point.
But
But
yeah,
so now we've recapped all of week 10. You're up to speed now. But I think it's important now we see what the playoff picture looks like if the playoffs ended today, how teams can be leapfrogged, especially after a massive week 10. So we had some upsets in there. People were dropped down in the playoff rankings. So I have the playoff picture in front of me. I say we cover the AFC first. Um, we're also happy to preview the number one pick odds as well. But if the playoffs ended today, the Colts would be the number one seed, having that first round bye. They have the tiebreaker over the Patriots and Broncos based on conference games. Number two would be the Broncos with a better record in conference games as well. And then Patriots as the 3 seed, Steelers as the 4 seed, being that division winner. Wild card as of right now would be Chargers facing off against the Steelers, Bills against Patriots, and Jags and Broncos, with the Chiefs, Texans, Ravens, and maybe the Bengals at the outside looking in.
yeah. And right now, I think the Patriots are going to be the one seed just because really you play the Bills, but you don't have too many other tough games against playoff teams left on your schedule. And then for the Broncos, you still have to match up with the Kansas City Chiefs. You still have some tough in division games. I mean, you struggled against the Raiders. What are you going to do against Kansas City and the Chargers again? And then the Colts also have some tough divisional games coming up here. So I think both those teams are going to get a little beat up in their own division. So the Patriots will be able to end up getting the number one seed. I do think the Colts should be the 2 seed though, especially with their schedule. I just don't know if the Texans will be able to come back and win their division. I think at this point they're a little bit too far behind, especially playing the Bills and Kansas City again, and then you have to play Indianapolis twice.
Yeah, I don't believe in the Colts as far as being the 1 seed. I think the Patriots will also take that. I think I think the Jags are going to fall out of that playoff picture. I see the Chiefs making it and jumping the Jaguars. Texans, maybe, but I just think it's probably out of the mix. I also think we're going to see the Ravens jump the Steelers for the division, which would lead them facing the Chargers in the first round if the event the Chargers are the 5th seed. And then the Bills, I think the Bills at the 6th seed is exactly where we're going to find them. I think they'll be better record wise than that of the Chiefs. Plus, they have the tiebreaker. And then everybody else, like the Bengals, they can't lose to the Jets. They can't blow a game against the Bears. Otherwise, they'd be right in the mix there. So I think the Bengals are out of it. And then every other team in the AFC isn't even worth mentioning because they're vying for the number one overall pick now at this point.
Yeah, so it'd probably have like Patriots with the bye, then we would have Colts and Chiefs in the first round, potentially, and then we'd have Broncos, Bills rematch again, and then Ravens and Chargers right now. Do you think that's a fair outlook?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to run through Foxborough. And then if the Broncos keep that division, it's probably going to be Broncos and Bills potentially, or Broncos and Chiefs. And then Ravens and Bills potentially, the pace on how it breaks down. But I think those are all great matchups. Storylines fit that really well. Texans, they just started off too slow. I don't think they bounce back, nor will the Bengals. But if we go over to the NFC, if the divisions ended today, we would have the Eagles as the number 1 seed with the tiebreaker over the Seahawks. Seahawks would be matched up against the Packers with the 2 and 7 seed respectively. The Lions would face the Bears, and then the Bucks would face the Rams as the 4 seed with the 5. Outside looking in, we have the Niners at 6 and 4, Panthers at 5 and 5, and Vikings at 4 and 5, Cowboys at 3, 5 and 1. I think they're out of it at this point.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are really the only real team at this point looking in, and it's getting tougher and tougher for them because you have to play Seattle and you have to play the Rams in your own division. So I think the 49ers are going to be a victim of injuries on this team potentially. Also, just again, getting beat up by your own division, especially having two teams in your division go nuclear and looking like two of the best teams in the conference. So I think the 49ers might have a tough time like securing the final wild card spot for that reason. Then the Vikings, I just can't see them doing it with JJ McCarthy, especially after that loss to the Ravens at home on Sunday. Like I just have a tough time visualizing that right now. But you never know. You could see a Packers or a Bears collapse. Those are two teams that I don't really trust heading into the playoffs. So that'll be interesting to see both of them. And then you're looking at either Seattle or potentially the Rams, probably being the 2 seed because I think Philadelphia, just based on their division, again, is going to walk away with that.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like the Rams are probably going to win that division, but the Seahawks, if they keep playing the way they do, I think they're going to definitely cruise to that win. They do have the tiebreaker over them, and they have a better record in division games. So either way, I think the way this matchup now works well. We have Lions and Bears, which would be a great matchup. We have Packers and Seahawks. Maybe that's Packers and Rams if they win that division. And then Bucks, I think, stays at that 4 seed potentially.
Yeah, and they would play the either Seattle or LA probably in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, unless if the Bears leap them, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Probably not.
So then if we go to the opposite of the playoffs, the number 1 seed or the number 1 overall pick. Right now, if it ended today, the seeding would go. The number 1 pick would be the Tennessee Titans at 1 and 8, the only team with just 1 win on their schedule. Sorry, Cardinals. And then the Giants at 2 and 8, they'd be the 2 pick. Saints as the 3 pick at 2 and 8. Browns as 2 and 7. Raiders, Jets also 2 and 7. And then the 3-win teams include the Commanders, Dolphins, Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals, and Cowboys. So I think if we look at this number 1 overall pick, the Titans, they are very much in rebuild. Their offense, the lowest scoring team in all of the NFL, has the worst plus minus in the NFL. They've lost 4 straight games. I think they're going to probably stay as that number 1 overall pick. And then I think we see the Browns potentially move up to number 2. Giants, I think, can win another game, especially post Brian Daboll. I think they can get another win. But how do you see this top 5 play out for the NFL as far as the top 5 picks?
Yeah, and still the worst team in football, the Tennessee Titans, probably, right? I mean, you're going to have Cam Ward now going into his second year, and you could potentially pull a Cardinals with when they traded Josh Rosen. Then you go out there and take the best quarterback available, or you can trade that number 1 overall pick and end up trading back. So I think it's definitely going to be the Titans at this point, especially with the Saints. They're going to start to pick up a win here or there at the end of the year. Same with the Jets. I think the Jets kind of have a little bit of mojo right now. And then the win teams like the Dolphins and the Cowboys still think they're going to at least win probably 5, maybe 6 games.
Yeah, I would agree. Dolphins, I think maybe 4 or 5, but Commanders, they're banged up. I think they still can win games, especially if Jaden Daniels comes back. The Raiders, very much in the mix. They have not played great at all. Geno Smith has been not great for them. He has turned back into the old Geno Smith prior to Seattle. And then so I think we're ultimately going to see as the top 5 picks, Titans, Saints, Browns, Raiders, and potentially the Jets right there. But Giants, I think they're a team that can leapfrog out of the top 5 potentially with a win. Maybe the Dolphins make that top 5 potentially, but I think where we are right now with these top 5 picks is pretty secure at this point.
Yeah, so definitely keep an eye on the race for the number 1 overall pick, and then that leads us into 1-1, which is week 11, and it starts out on Thursday night football. As you pull up the spreads, we have a matchup of New England versus New York. New York, after starting 0-7, has now won 2 games. As we pointed out earlier in the show, a lot of the Jets' losses have been to just close games, just some errors at the end of it. But they had a close game versus Pittsburgh, had a close game against the Broncos, had a close game against Tampa Bay, where their special teams has been able to step up. So there has been some positivity for the Jets here. So on Thursday Night Football, do you think they can cover or beat New England?
I think they can cover the spread for a couple of reasons. I'm looking at their record against the Patriots since 2020, post Tom Brady, and these games are close. Like I'm looking at it, we have back in 2020, Patriots win 30-27. We have a couple of blowouts here and there, but if we look at the last 5 games, last year 25-22, Jets got the win in 2024, division lead. And then ultimately, they've split historically. Now, I think the Patriots are a much better team, but a 12.5 point spread, I think ultimately, I think the Jets can cover. I still think the Patriots are going to win by 10, but I think we're looking at more of like a 24-14 type of game. And the Patriots take control, still get that win, but I think the Jets can definitely cover. That's a big spread to cover. And over the last 5 years, this rivalry has been closer than you would think, despite the Patriots 8-2 record.
Yeah, and the tough thing for the Jets will be no Garrett Wilson, and then you already lost Sauce Gardner, so now you have 2 cornerstones for your franchise down. And again, Justin Fields proved that he can't throw, and it's a problem because the Patriots have one of the best run defenses in the league. So I think at this point, we'll kind of see the Patriots just win maybe a closer game on Thursday Night Football just because it's just short turnaround. But to beat the Jets, all you have to do is just prevent them from scoring on special teams and defense. And Drake May, only 5 interceptions so far this season, so he hasn't been turning the ball over a whole lot. And he, special teams, they haven't had too many blaring errors either. So that's really the only way the Jets can beat you.
Yeah, and maybe if you have the fumbling issues you've had in the previous part of the year, but I think they've solved that with Trevion Henderson. So I would agree. Patriots are going to win, but I would take the Jets to cover potentially. And then we have a Madrid game in Spain. This is Dolphins Commanders at bright and early 9:30 East Coast, 6:30 West Coast. But Dolphins are favored at 2.5 at home against the Commanders. Marcus Mariota, Tua Tagovailoa. They have kind of a split decision on who wins this game. My heart is leaning, believe it or not, on the Dolphins. I think they get this win. Commanders just feel defeated. They have Jaden Daniels who's banged up. Debo Samuel is not himself. Terry McLaurin is still dealing with injury. Just feels like a lost season for the Commanders. Dolphins get some momentum after beating the Bills. They go out in Madrid, beat the Commanders.
Yeah, no, I definitely have the Dolphins winning this game as well. You just had a huge win versus the Bills, and the Dolphins, ever since Tyreek Hill has gone down, Jalen Waddle has stepped up and he's started to look like again the receiver we thought he could be when he got paid and when they were making the playoffs. So I do think Jalen Waddle and Tua, that connection will be enough in this game. And I like that Mike McDaniels went to Tua and he was like, on third down, I would just want you to treat it like a punt, chuck the ball downfield, and then see what happens. And then Tua starts to make some good things happen, pass down the field. So as you said, Commanders are just a little bit too defeated at this point with injuries.
All right. And then Panthers and Falcons at the 11 o'clock slate. We have last time they faced off, Panthers beat them 30-0, but the Falcons outscored them in passing yards, rushing yards, and total team yards. I right now the Falcons are favored at 3.5 at home, and I'd like to think, following a terrible loss last week and a terrible loss against the Panthers in previous weeks, that they'll split. I had them splitting when we did the rankings earlier in the season. I will take the Falcons to beat the Panthers. I just think the Panthers offense is marginal at this point, and the Falcons have a lot of talent. Will Bijan Robinson wake up against the Panthers? I think he will. Drake London has played exceptional for them. I'll take the Falcons to bounce back and take the win against the Panthers.
Yeah, they better bounce back and win this game, or this is going to be a huge problem. I mean, you've had three major losses in a row right now: San Francisco, New England, and now Indianapolis. So, this is a game where you have to come out and beat the Panthers because if your upper management for Atlanta and Raheem Morris has now lost twice to the Panthers this season, who are by far maybe the worst team in your division, especially after they lost to the Saints now. That's a big problem. So if they lose this game, then I think they're going to start looking at Raheem Morris a little bit more skeptically. Like, what exactly do you do here?
I would agree. The Falcons, maybe they're not a playoff team, but 3-7 if they lose this game, that's unacceptable. You have Bijan Robinson, a top 5 running back. Drake London has played like a top 10, 15 wide receiver. They should be a better team. 3-6 is unacceptable for the Falcons. They should be closer to that 5-5 range. And maybe they get the win and they start to bounce back. But if they lose this game, Raheem Morris's job is definitely in jeopardy, and I think they move on after this year. Panthers, they're a fun 5-5 team, but I think they come back down to earth. That 30-0 win against the Falcons earlier this year felt very fluky. I think they tie the score, and they split the season series. But then we'll stay with divisional matchups. We have the Texans and Titans. Texans are favored at 6.5. Dougie Mills potentially playing another game. Maybe CJ Stroud comes back, but Texans are favored at 6.5 against the Titans, who are right now the number 1 overall pick. This is in Nashville. How do we see this? Do you think the Texans cover?
Yeah, I mean, don't start CJ Stroud in this game. Dougie Mills can handle his own, especially in Nashville. So I think the Texans go out there, take care of business. Their defense is probably going to score more points than the Titans' offense. And will the Titans score at any point in this game is going to be the real question. We don't know. I really doubt it. Like, can you envision any possible way? Because Tony Pollard has looked horrible. He's fallen off a cliff this year. Tajay Spears is just not exciting, even though he has his moments. And then people are like, wow, Tajay Spears looked pretty good. And you look up and it was like 15 carries for 44 yards. And then, the offense is hopeless. The defense is hopeless. The season is hopeless.
Yeah, I don't see them scoring any more than 10 points. I would agree. Texans should cover. I would honestly be comfortable with that spread. I think they cover. They win, especially if CJ Stroud is back. But even if Doug Mills is playing, I like them covering there. Then we have arguably game of the 1 o'clock slate. We have Bucks and Bills. Very big game for both teams. Bucks had a tough loss against the Patriots last week. The Bills had an embarrassing loss against the Dolphins last week. But Bills are favored at 5.5 still in Orchard Park. One of the last home games for the Bills in Orchard Park in their history. And it really comes down to, like, these are two teams that I think are fairly even as far as where they rank in the NFL. But I have to go with the team that I trust more. If a team is down, which team do I trust to come back? who's come down multiple times. Which team do I trust more defensively? Which quarterback do I trust more in late stages? I like the Bucks to beat them in Orchard Park. Bills officially on fraud alert with this game, at least in the media standard. I take the Bucks to win this game.
Yeah, I'll take the Bucks to win this one. Potentially could have Bucky Irving back in this game, so that could help. But Tampa Bay also coming off a loss is a good team, and then Baker Mayfield was pretty upset after they lost to New England. Challenged his teammates to get upset about this, say you should hate this, say you really shouldn't like losing. And the Bills have already dropped back-to-back games this season, so I do think it's completely fine to put two and two together that Tampa Bay can go out there and beat them. So I think Tampa ends up taking this away. I picked this game for Tampa Bay earlier this season as well, so I will take them to win this one.
All right. And then staying with divisional games, we have Bears and Vikings. Vikings are favored at 3.5 at home. And frankly, when it comes down to it, I believe in the Bears more. Simply, I think defensively, these two teams are fairly even. But offensively, I trust the Bears a lot more. Caleb Williams is starting to come into his own. And I don't trust J.J. McCarthy. I think this might be the nail in the coffin for the Vikings season. Give me the Bears in this game to beat the Vikings on the road.
I will go with the Vikings in this one because this game is do or die for Minnesota, but it's not really do or die for Chicago because you feel good about yourself and you came back versus the Giants, which is great. But before Jackson Dart got injured, you were down 2 scores to New York in the fourth quarter. Caleb Williams had to bring you back on 2 drives at the end of it. And, they've kind of been messing around in some of these games. So I do think Minnesota is in a win or go home situation this week. They're going to be treating this like a playoff game. So I do think the Vikings will be able to come out there. And if you keep getting into these one possession games like Chicago has, I do think it is going to backfire on you at some point. So I think the Vikings just have too much talent not to be in the mix.
All right. I respect it. I think this will be a close game regardless. A game that shouldn't be close, but I feel like it's going to be anyways. Packers and Giants. Packers are favored at 7.5. Uncertain the status of Jackson Dart. We could potentially be seeing Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston in the event that he's banged up. We have Brian Daboll in the post Brian Daboll era. Right now, I don't trust the Packers. I don't. I think the Packers should win this game, but something tells me it's going to be a lot closer than it should be. They tend to play down to their competition this year. Where in the world is Micah Parsons? I don't know. I don't know where he's been of late, but the Packers being the better team, a team that has more momentum, I will take the Packers to win. But I honestly look at that 7.5 point spread, and I think the Giants could potentially cover and lose by less than a touchdown.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see them covering in this one. But I will say, if there's any guy that you want to take up 2 weeks of take 2 weeks of frustration out on after losing to the Panthers and losing a game where you didn't score in the first half and you didn't score until the fourth quarter and only got one touchdown, it would be Russell Wilson. So if there is a guy that you want to take all of that fury out on, I would say it'd be the Giants and Russell Wilson. I do think it'll probably be a closer one possession game. You always have that post head coach firing boost that teams get sometimes. So that is always a factor. But you have Russell Wilson going up against Jordan Love, who's been doing his Russell Wilson impression the past few weeks, and not the Russell Wilson in Seattle, the Russell Wilson in Denver, Pittsburgh, and now New York. So this is probably going to be one of the most ugly games to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be an ugly 1 o'clock slate. But I agree. I think the Packers should win, so they better win, or they'll be on the worst top five again. Then we have Bengals and Steelers. Steelers are favored at 5.5. We saw the Tylenol Bowl with Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers last time they faced, which was probably the best Thursday night game of the year. Steelers looking for revenge in Acrisure Stadium, favored it at 5.5. With what I've seen against the Steelers, this is a hard game for me to pinpoint, but I'd like to think that these teams historically split. I will take the Steelers to win this game. I don't know if I would bet this game, but I think Steelers should bounce back following a loss against them previously.
Yeah, they should, and the Bengals could also win this game, but I just don't feel like staking my reputation on either of these teams, so pass for me. Like,
Tie.
honestly, like Steelers and Bengals at this point, like the Bengals losing to Chicago, you had that one win. You also lost to the Jets. That was the one time where Justin Fields actually threw and beat a team that scored over 21 points for the first time in his career. You gave Justin Fields his first win against the team that scored over 20. So you have that hanging over you. And then you just have the Steelers being pathetic on prime time, being pathetic the past few weeks, losing to the Cincinnati team already. So my answer is neither.
It's a tie. We'll call it a tie. We need another tie. We predicted a tie already. We need one more tie.
I did predict a tie for the Steelers this season, so
It would be fitting for them. So I would stand with that. Last 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock slate. We have Chargers and Jaguars. Chargers are favored at 2.5 in Jacksonville. Right now, the Jags, I don't fully trust them. I don't. Trevor Lawrence has never moved the needle for me. The Chargers defense, that's enough for a team I think that can stop whatever the Jags have on offense. BTJ has been banged up and not himself this year. Chargers, on the other hand, it looks like their offense is starting to move again. The running back, Imani Vidal, has filled in nicely for Amari and Hampton. Lad McConkey's getting going. Give me the Chargers. I think they win this game and cover the spread.
yeah, I'll take the Chargers too. I described the Jaguars as frantic earlier in the season. It's kind of just followed them through. Trevor Lawrence only having 158 passing yards last week. This team's kind of been a disaster, and the Chargers have just jumped off my screen more this season than Jacksonville, where Jacksonville has just not. I get they've won games, but they haven't looked like a great team when they've won.
I would agree. Yeah, I trust the Chargers more. That's why I pick them. I think they should beat the Jags comfortably. And then we have 4 o'clock slates this week, and actually
Wow.
really good games for the most part. Game of the week in the 4 o'clock slate, in my mind, Seahawks and Rams. Rams are favored at 3.5 at SoFi. This is a game that I think is going to come down to a field goal. Should be a higher scoring game, over under a 48.5. But right now, if I had to pick which team I think is the better team, I'm going to edge the Rams by just a little bit. I think offensively, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, Matt Stafford throwing for 4 touchdowns, no picks over the last 3 consecutive games. I just think that the Rams are a slight bit better, but this game should ultimately be very close. I think like 30-27 is well within our wheelhouse. Two teams that are great defensively. Give me the Rams in this game to beat them at home.
Yeah, I'll take the Rams in this one as well. They should win. They should be the better team in this game, especially just because of Matthew Stafford. If they lose this game, it's going to be because Kyron Williams won't be able to hold on to the ball. And I stand by that at this point. But you look at last season, the Rams were really the ones that took the Lions' blueprint on how to beat the Minnesota Vikings offense with Sam Darnold. And then they just took it to a whole new level in the playoffs and were able to shut him down. So think the Rams defense will have the recipe to slow down Seattle here. So give me the Rams in this one, but we'll have the great Tom Brady calling this game and should hopefully be the best game of the week. I hope it's at least competitive.
I hope so too. I think it's going to be a good game. But now we move to another big game, Chiefs and Broncos. Chiefs, over the Patrick Mahomes era, has an outstanding record against the Broncos. I'll pull it up while we're talking here. But right now, Chiefs are favored at 3.5 in Denver. Denver, this is an 8-2 team that I don't necessarily respect. And the Chiefs are, let me get the exact record for Mahomes, but he was 17-0 against the Broncos at one point in his career. Right now, he is 13-1 in his time with the Broncos, and that goes all the way back to his time starting here. 20 touchdowns, 11 picks. I just think when it comes to history, I like the Chiefs in this game. They should be in that mix there. I think the Broncos are due for a loss. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, Broncos definitely deserve a loss, especially what they made everyone witness and go through on Thursday Night Football. That was absolutely pathetic. And the Chiefs, they've had some really good moments this season, and they just had a bye. Andy Reid coming off a bye has been excellent. So now they're looking to make their final push potentially for that division this year. So give me the Chiefs in this one, especially with that history you laid out being 13-1 versus this Broncos team. Bo Nix now heading down close to 60% completion percentage. I mean, now we're getting into Cam Newton era.
Yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my arms around the Broncos. They're good defensively, but that's all I can really shout out. I don't know which Bo Nix I'm going to get each quarter, never mind each game. And then we have Ravens and Browns. If you're lucky enough to live in Cleveland, Ohio, this game should be just a measly $10. You scraped again just about
$10.
100. You can get a game as cheap as $10 in the great city of Ohio. So Ravens and Browns. Ravens are favored at 8.5. They've won 3 straight. Pretty obviously picking the Ravens here. They're on a roll. They're looking for that division. I will take the Ravens easily.
Yeah, I'll take the Ravens as well. I mean, $10 tickets. What else do we need to say at this point? And then also don't forget the game Lamar Jackson had against them earlier this season where he torched them.
Yeah. And then we have Niners and Cardinals, Rams. This is going to be in State Farm Stadium. So this will be in Arizona. Spread is 2.5 in favor of the Niners. And a guy who lives in Phoenix, I can confidently say this is going to be a mostly 49ers crowd. I like the Niners in this game. Cardinals, the Jacoby Brissett story was interesting. I like that they're sticking with him rather than Kyler, but I like the Niners. The Niners are a better team. So give me the Niners in this game.
Yeah, and Cardinals start to have some injuries on offense that you don't like to see there. And I think the 49ers know how to handle Marvin Harrison Jr. That's really what you have to do. And they kind of have to win this game to stay within striking distance of the division as well, where the Cardinals are kind of just hoping to play upset ball at this point.
Yeah. Now we have Sunday Night Football, and this game could be game of the year potentially. We have Lions and Eagles in
Oh,
Philadelphia, and this is where the Eagles are favored at 2.5. And this will be obviously Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff going toe to toe in a potential NFC title game matchup, dare I say. And right now, if I had to put my money on it, I wasn't super impressed with the showing that I saw with the Eagles against the Packers. I'm taking the Lions to upset the Eagles. I think they win and move closer into that potential number 1 seed for Detroit.
yeah, and the Lions have been really good against the run this season. And when you're going up against Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, I think that's important. You saw them start to turn up the dial a little bit last week versus the Commanders. Dan Campbell now taking over the play calling. And you also have the Philadelphia Eagles star corner taking a break from football right now, trying to figure out if he does want to continue playing, figuring out his playing career. So that will be an interesting situation to see play out. The only thing that concerns me is Jalen Carter, but I do think Detroit will be able to go in there on primetime and win, especially with Dan Campbell having the best primetime record of any head coach since he's taken over the Detroit Lions at this point. And they need this win a little bit more than Philadelphia. Philadelphia is probably going to win their division. They could probably easily get the number 1 seed, even if they lose this game. So this game just isn't as important to Philadelphia as it is to Detroit.
Absolutely. I would agree. And Flower Pods NFL, shout out to him. Thank you for joining our live and putting in your picks. He also agrees that the Lions will win this game. So shout out to you. Make sure to subscribe if you're still in here. Much
Shout out.
appreciate. Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks for supporting the show. Monday Night Football. We have Cowboys and Raiders. This game, it doesn't sound like a great matchup, but this is going to be a great Monday Night Football game. Cowboys, they can't stop anybody. We're going to see peak Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker in this game. Maybe this is where we see Ashton Genty get going. He could get all 1,000 yards all in this game potentially. And then the Cowboys, they're coming off a couple of rough games. I know they had a bye week last week, but they lose to the Broncos pretty considerably. The Cardinals, they just get absolutely manhandled. I think we see the Cowboys come back, bounce back, and get the win.
Potentially, yeah. And Geno Smith got banged up in that game on Thursday night. He was barely able to walk. He was pretty much just in there to hand the ball off. So that is going to be a situation where you're looking at the health of Geno Smith. And I think if Geno Smith was healthy, the gunslinger in him would be able to get the ball to Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, and then really help them. But they did have some key errors with their rookie wide receiver filling in for Jacoby Myers, where he had two key holds on plays where Ashton Genty could have broken it open. So you're seeing just some miscues there. The entire NFL is waking up to Pete Carroll being the Joe Biden of the NFL, even though we labeled him as that coming into the year. So I think like this is just a must have game for Dallas just for pride alone.
I would agree. The Raiders, they're not going anywhere. Geno Smith's not the answer. He's banged up. Their defense is nothing to write home about. I just think the Cowboys' offense is so much better. So I like the Cowboys in this game as well. And this should be a win. Otherwise, Brian Schottenheimer, shame on you. But we have recapped all of week 10. We have previewed all of week 11. NFL, we've checked off every botch. What is the worst? What is the best top 5 teams? You've been covered. So all things NFL has been covered as well, as long with the playoff picture. So we've got a lot covered. Before we conclude our show, what have you been watching or listening to over the last week?
Yeah, over the last week, what have I been watching? What have I been listening to? I watched the Les Miserables movie with Russell Crowe and Hugh Jackman. And I knew this was a musical going into it. I had like when I was in middle school, like a audio drama for it. So I knew the story, kind of like the story a little bit. And then the movie just starts, and then it's just this like singing dialogue where they're just singing random things at each other. Where the movie as a musical really only has like 3 songs in it, and then it's just Russell Crowe singing like a cow and Hugh Jackman like doing like I don't know. It just like it was kind of off. It was like just the way they did it because like it's fine like if it's a musical that's cool, but at least if you're just going to kind of like half sing at each other like I don't know what to do now. I'm talking to you like the entire movie like maybe just have some more dialogue. I don't know. But it felt like I was watching a play and just the pacing of the whole movie is so weird, and it was one of those movies like you're just kind of watching a slow train wreck. In like the first 10 minutes of the movie, I wanted to turn it off, but you just can't stop watching it because of how bizarre it is, and it kind of just gets stuck in your head after, even though I hated it. Because like it's a good story in general, but just this movie like is infuriating. Like if you're gonna make a musical, make something like La La Land where they actually talk to each other, but then you just have these random jumps in time like it's a play. They don't even add narration to explain what's going on. So if someone came into it not knowing the story, they would have no idea what's happening.
My question is, I think the elevator. How did you come to this? This was a movie that you saw. You're like, let's watch this one. Who picked this movie between you and the lady? Was it did she decide this movie, or does it just kind of? How did this come? How did you guys choose this movie of all movies to watch?
It was just like Sunday night football, like watching like a movie, like while the game was on, like I was watching it on the tablet. So just like threw something on in the background. I'm like, oh yeah, I know the story for that. I haven't seen it. She hadn't like seen the movie either. So like I guess we'll put that on. And then it's just one of those movies like it was literally grinding my ears when it started. It's because it's just like it starts out Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe just like singing at each other, like uh, uh, I don't know,
Hey,
and then
I will
it's
say
just like
Flowers Prod NFL. His parents are a big fan. So shout out to Flowers Prod. But yeah, I personally am not a fan of musicals at all. My mom had me watch Moulin Rouge as a kid, and I was not a fan of that. La La Land was cool because mostly like Emma Stone and I share a birthday, and Ryan Gosling's great. But otherwise, musicals for me, I can't jive with them. They just even as a guy who likes music, all types of music, that movie, that like musicals are just like needles on a chalkboard most of the time.
Yeah, and it was definitely like very theater kitty. It like kind of felt like watching a play, and like the CGI in this movie also didn't age well either.
I'm not surprised. I got rave reviews. I think Anne Hathaway got nominated for an Oscar in this movie, um, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's it's. I'm not a. I would probably wouldn't. This won three Oscars actually, and Anne Hathaway did win an Oscar for this. So
What?
that this confirms that the Oscars are theater kids, 100%,
Oh, for sure.
1,000%. Yeah, Les Miserables. I ended up watching the Trump biopic, The Apprentice, with Sebastian Stan as Trump, and they have Jeremy Short as Roy Cohn, a big influence in Trump's life. Um, and honestly, I went into it hearing that like the performance of Trump was really good, and honestly, like you have your, everyone has their opinion of Trump, the person now, but hearing about him like from essentially the 70s into the 80s, like when he starts to build his name in New York, starting to develop Trump Tower and whatnot. Um, the credit that I give to it is both great performances by Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. They played great roles. And also, another thing that I really liked about this movie was I was expecting like anybody who plays Trump, they do like kind of like the Alec Baldwin impression of him. The accent is wrong. It just doesn't have the right cadence to it. This guy, I didn't feel like he was going for the Trump cadence as much as he was going for like kind of his aura in the movie. And it also was a movie that wasn't like overly critical or overly positive of the guy. A guy who's very divisive as a person in general. It wasn't somebody that like you would be following this movie have a strong opinion towards in the positive end or on the negative end. I think it showed him as just a full, complete human, which I appreciate because I feel like, especially in today's times with the divisive nature of our politics, either it being one way or the other, and this movie did a great job of it being just kind of a balanced movie, just telling the story of the upcoming of Trump. And Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn was perfect. I think he got nominated for an Oscar. We'll see if he wins, but highly recommend if you're interested in the history of Donald Trump and the history of just how he became who he is. Very interesting. I would recommend it.
Yeah, I remember seeing a trailer for this movie when it was coming out, and like for me, it just felt like a little bit too soon. Like, especially you're telling a story in that time of his life, it just kind of felt weird, and I don't really know who they made that movie for because it wasn't really marketed towards like your Fox News like boomers that are
Mm.
his demographic. And I didn't really see it marketed too much. It seemed more like it's kind of weird they're making like an indie, like kind of Oscar movie about him. So for me, it just looked like from the outside looking in, like this is just like a little bit too soon.
Yeah, that's understandable. This came out. This was an independent film. So this was funded by the director Ali Abbasi, who did a great job. Um, and yeah, it didn't get a lot of promotion. Didn't have a huge budget, but he does a good job. It kind of shows Trump as he gains power, as he starts to gain his wealth, his footing in New York. But it was really good. They did a great job. I think for a movie like this, they did everything they could to not make it as polarizing as they could have. So I appreciate it for that regard alone. So if you end up having Amazon Prime and you want to watch it, I would recommend it.
Yeah, no, it seems interesting, especially like just that era of him, kind of like the making of who he was, because this is a guy who had like the number one cable show like running for a long period of time with The Apprentice, and then he was also like the number one mentioned like person in hip hop for a while in the 90s and 2000s. Mac Miller made a song about him too, and he kind of represented a lifestyle and created a aesthetic and a brand in New York. And he did come from a powerful family. And there is like a lot of things you can point to as far as him like maybe being a nepo baby, but you still have to go out there and then do the work. And I feel like he has at least done it. And then he is someone who has worked hard. Like, say what you will about the guy, he keeps people awake on planes. Caitlin Collins, who has like sparred with him a lot, not necessarily someone I would say a friend of him, is like, yeah, like he'll keep us up, like awake on all of our flights to Asia. If you fall asleep, he'll just randomly wake you up because he wants to talk to you, or he'll make fun of people for sleeping.
Yeah. I think with Trump, what I like about this movie is it shows the risks he takes. Like you mentioned him as like a Nepo baby, and they owned, I want to say his dad owned like 1,700 different apartments in New York. Um, but it shows him like taking that risk rather than going for like these low end apartments, taking that risk and buying like a luxury hotel, creating Trump Tower and what it is today. Something that's more of like a monument in New York these days. So he did take a risk, even though it wasn't a family business and he wasn't necessarily paycheck to paycheck. It still showed him take those big risks from the family. And if you look at New York in the 70s, they definitely had a crisis where the city was run down. They needed a facelift, and he kind of developed different parts of the city to make it what New York is now today. So he's definitely took his risks, and as a real estate developer, they highlight that in the film, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and just coming at it from like someone who is like interested in real estate and kind of that world, that does like sound pretty interesting if you're just looking at it from like a pure like business person, like real estate acquisition type of risk movie, something like similar to like maybe The Big Short or Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, it's similar. With less like flashy, it doesn't glorify or um, disgrace that era. It just kind of tells you what happened, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, because from the trailer it looked like a little bit subdued.
Yeah, it's definitely more. I don't know how to describe it. It's definitely more like lull, but yeah. To answer Flower Pod's NFL question, when do you guys go live? We go live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
So make
typically
sure to
on at
tune in.
9 Eastern, 9:15. Sometimes we're running a little bit late, but we're on live every single Tuesday here, so you'll be able to catch us. Typically, we go for 2 to 2.5 hours as well. Then we post a bunch of shorts. We're on TikTok at Brick Nation Media. Definitely catch us there, and then you can also catch the full pod after the fact. But we always recap every single game, give our top fives, and then we preview every single game as well. And then at the end of the show, we talk about something that we've been watching or listening to. But, you know, we have been right about a lot of things coming into the season. So we appreciate you tuning in today.
Absolutely. Shout out to Flowers Pod. Um, awesome. Only day I have nothing to do. Great. You can stay up late and watch us. So thank you again. But we've covered everything. We've talked about what we've watched, the NFL, all things NFL, worst and best top fives, Brian Dayball getting fired. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday as we cover week 11 and preview week 12. Most importantly,